Chapter 251. Captain Voltazi of the 8th Fleet, previously part of the Red Tail Fleet but now temporarily assigned to the scouting unit, was currently very excited. Was it because of the impending battle? Or perhaps the fact that this was a massive operation involving 4 elite fleets? No, none of those reasons applied. Voltazi was a veteran soldier who had fought through countless battles. He wasn't some rookie who'd get worked up over something like this. The real reason for his excitement was that the Great Elder himself was participating in this battle. There were very few instances where the highest authority of the Star Union personally stepped onto the battlefield. Even among the elite cyborgs more exceptional than Voltazi, there were almost no cases of them having fought alongside the Great Elder. But today, Voltazi had the honor of treading the battlefield alongside that magnificent leader. Today is truly a glorious day. The planetary encirclement is being deployed. Good. Activate the warp finder first, and power up the system monitoring radar for the star system. Report any abnormalities immediately. Confirmed. Despite the thrill surging within him, his rational mind remained ice-cold. Failure was not an option, especially since this battle had the Great Elder himself involved. With his consciousness linked to the ship's computer, he began his duties as part of the scouting fleet. As he processed the data being transmitted through the cables and issued commands, something caught his eye. On the 3D map of the star system, 2 unfamiliar red markers had appeared. What's this? He wondered if he was seeing things, but no, one marker remained stationary, distanced from the target planet. And the other one was enemy attack. Enemy attack. All units, prepare for battle. Confirmed. Orders relayed. A crimson light rapidly approached the ship that had been initiating the encirclement. Soon, that light began to split into many fragments. Minus. ZZZZZZZZZZZ. Avoid unnecessary attacks. Concern unnecessary comrade strong. Beside me, Adha radiated a wave of pride through her telepathic signal. The other Galagons following behind us emitted a wave of agreement, scattering their thoughts in harmony. ZZZZZ. Focus only on the targets. Yes. Ort remembers. I was currently cutting through the vacuum of space, flying with 15 Galagons. This was the same lineup that fought against Pira 11, Adha, now empowered by the red Galagon strength, Ort, the black Galagon, and 13 white Galagons, all following my lead. And at the end of my trajectory, there were the enemy ships. 33 massive vessels, accompanied by numerous patrol ships protecting their perimeters. Their numbers were large enough to be considered a regular fleet rather than just a scouting unit. The moment they spotted us, the enemy quickly formed a battle formation. Among the dark expanse of space, dotted with starlight, flickers of light began to shine. Torpedoes and drones launched by the enemy raced toward us. The Galagons, including Adha, instinctively moved behind me without needing any instructions. Normally, I wouldn't be able to conceal all 15 Galagons with my body, but that was only in my usual state. The body I now used in this zero-gravity environment was far larger than normal. After hunting down the ice horror in the past, I had acquired a fusion trait related to my body called Bone Beast. This fusion trait allowed me to transform into a giant beast for 60 minutes. Back when I fought against Jason, combining the Bone Beast with the special state of King of Monsters from the organic evolution trait had allowed my body to grow to nearly 300 meters in length. Of course, my current form wasn't that large. The cooldown of the organic evolution trait hadn't ended, so I couldn't use it yet. Still, an 80-meter-long body is more than big enough. Unlike the battle against Jason, this time, I also had wings. My wingspan alone was well over 100 meters, making my breadth even greater than my length. The black carapace that covered my body was now doubly reinforced with the white exoskeleton from the Bone Beast transformation. Anyone looking at me would probably think I was draped in the bones of a gigantic monster, like the ice horror. Alright, let's get started. I spread my massive wings, shielding the Galagons as I turned my snout toward the incoming torpedoes and drones. Even though there was no wind in this void, the tendrils sprouting from my neck swayed gently. It wasn't the wind moving them but the psychic power emanating from within me. And then, the most powerful psychic breath I'd ever unleashed erupted toward the targets. As the violet beam surged, it ignited a dazzling display of explosions. The torpedoes of the Star Union were rendered powerless before the flames of my amplified psychic power, boosted by both the Bone Beast and the Heart of the Dragon ability. The anti-psycho defense, APD, weapons managed to hold up for a moment, but they couldn't avoid the torpedoes detonating at point-blank range. Drones caught in the blast either exploded or malfunctioned, tumbling through space. I nullified the first wave of attacks in a single strike and charged towards the enemy ships. The special wavelengths radiating from the membranes of my wings allowed me to maneuver with exceptional agility even in space. The Galagons followed, utilizing their psychic power as propulsion to keep pace with me. The enemy attempted to barrage us with more firepower, but by then, I had already closed the distance between us and the scattered fleet. The corvettes around the destroyers fired ultra-vibration torpedoes at me, but they were useless. Even as the vibrations seeped through, the layers of my carapace blocked them from reaching deeper. Trusting in my defenses, I landed atop one of the corvettes. I could only imagine the panic inside. To them, a massive creature gripping their vessel would have been nightmarish. I grabbed the corvette and hurled it toward another corvette that was launching torpedoes. The ship spun wildly through space before colliding with the other, and the ensuing impact created a flash of death. The X-10 class destroyer, which had been protected by the corvettes, tried to retreat upon witnessing this destruction. "Where do you think you're going?" I extended my corrosive tentacles. Enhanced by the bone beast effect, the tentacles had grown to the same massive scale as my wings and body, reaching out to grasp the fleeing destroyer. Compared to me, the destroyer was about 5 times larger, but that didn't deter me. As its turrets began aiming at my tentacles and body, I pulled myself flush against it. "Is this where the bridge is?" I pushed my head against a slight protrusion on the upper section of the ship, where dozens of small cameras stared back at me from the alloyed exterior. Opening my maw wide, a torrent of green liquid gushed from my throat, flooding over the destroyer's outer hull. The Star Union's ships were all heavily armored, but even they couldn't withstand such an overwhelming volume of acid. As my size increased, so did the amount of acidic fungi I could release. In a matter of moments, the hull melted, revealing the half-ruined bridge. I saw the cyborgs within scream in terror. Whether it was from seeing me or from the vacuum exposure, I wasn't sure. To end their suffering quickly, I unleashed a powerful psychic breath. A massive bubble, nearly 10 meters in diameter, seeped into the ship. The cyborgs who were struggling to survive became prey to the greedy bubble. As they melted in silent agony, I couldn't help but think of an old sci-fi creature feature from Earth. It depicted a pink ooze from outer space that destroyed an entire town, quite similar to what was unfolding here. Well then, let's. With the bridge destroyed, rendering the destroyer's controls useless, I tightened my grip on it with my tentacles and flung the ship toward other enemy vessels. The destroyers rushing in to provide support collided with the incoming ship. The psychic breath I had injected into the first ship transferred to the others, consuming new prey in the process. This paralyzed the destroyers, making them unable to mount any effective attacks. To finish things off, I released a regular psychic breath at the disoriented enemies. That's one down. One of the destroyers I took down had a warp finder aboard. According to PS-111, the 5 warp finders were spread across 3 ZAX-5 class fast battleships and 2 destroyers. Now, with 1 destroyed, 4 remained. As I battled the corvettes that attempted to swarm me, I observed how the others were fighting. In the distance, red, black, and white stars were gliding across the sea of stars. The red star, leading the meteor shower, streaked toward the corvettes. One by one, the ships pierced by this star exploded, decorating the black canvas of space. Smaller corvettes fired torpedoes and drones to pin it down, but they were too slow. Like a true meteor, the red star moved at incredible speed, cutting through the enemy ships. To deal with the rampaging red star, a destroyer began aiming its turrets. But this was a trap. A black star, scales as dark as the universe itself, pounced on the destroyer. Like a hunting hound gripping its prey's throat, the black star clung tightly to the destroyer and unleashed its violet breath. No matter how sturdy the destroyer's hull was, there was no surviving a dragon's breath at such close range. The elongated vessel was torn in two. Cyborgs and androids spilled out from the fractured ship, thrashing in the endless expanse before going still. The other vessels tried to scatter and encircle the 2 dragons, but they wouldn't be granted such an easy victory. The 13 white dragons, vassals of the daughter of the great meteor, unleashed their psychic breaths to keep the enemies at bay. They're fighting well. The destroyer Ham or just destroyed also contained a warp finder. That makes 2 down. 3 left. At that moment, a torpedo far larger than any fired before shot toward me. I quickly wrapped my tentacles around the debris of a nearby destroyer and hurled it to intercept the incoming torpedo. While the AI-guided projectile was clever, it hadn't expected me to use the Star Union's own ship as a shield. The powerful explosion rippled through the void, shaking the empty black space. Well, that worked out nicely. Beyond the explosion, a series of enemy ships came into view. A massive vessel, larger than a destroyer, was aiming at me while being escorted by corvettes. The ship that attacked me was one of the Zax 5 class battleships containing a warp finder. Sensing my gaze, the enemy, now fully reloaded, fired another volley of torpedoes in my direction. The torpedoes, massive and terrifying even at a glance, sped towards me. Even I would sustain considerable damage if one of those hit. If I hadn't used Bone Beast, that is. Just before impact, I rammed the torpedo with my head carapace. The immense force and flames engulfed my body. Minus. Ha. Ha ha ha. We did it. We killed that damn monster. Voltese cheered as he watched the explosion. Through the battleship cameras mounted on the outer wall. He had been horrified earlier when he saw the operational target throwing a destroyer at his comrades. Even as a veteran soldier, he'd never seen such a monstrous display. Especially when that creature had fixed its gaze on them after fending off the first attack. He had felt a chill run down his spine. But none of that mattered now. The beast was finished, having been struck by the battleship's primary torpedoes. All remaining ships maintain the warp finder and those other monsters too. Warning, operational target confirmed alive. What? Volte's eyes widened at the ship's computer's urgent report. Real-time video feeds transmitted via cables directly to his eyes. No. No way. From the black flames, long, slender arms emerged. Each time the membranes attached to the arms fluttered, the flames and smoke swayed violently. Then, the elongated snout and large horns of the creature's head became faintly visible. Despite taking a direct hit from the torpedo, it appeared unscathed, save for some minor damage to its head. Its eyes, dull like a dead fish, stared back at Voltese, eyes of a demon. Or reload the main guns. Kill it now. Acknowledged. As Voltese shouted, the operational target moved again. Its black wings, absorbing all light, unfurled, and the creature's form grew rapidly larger. It approached with such speed that it seemed to magnify in an instant. The corvettes and destroyers assigned to protect Voltese moved to intercept, hoping to buy some time. Unfortunately, this was a fatal mistake. 6 tentacles shot out from the creature's back, seizing the approaching corvettes. It swung them like blunt weapons, smashing the others that dared approach. The destroyers attempted to keep their distance while firing, but it was futile. From the cluster of tentacles around the creature's neck, purple heat rays shot forth, obliterating the destroyers. I need to retreat. Volte's orders were to stall until the main fleet arrived. But they still needed more time to get here. Fire the main cannon, then retreat at full speed. Before he could finish his command, the entire ship shook violently. It was a force that one might only expect from a direct hit by another battleship's main cannon. Thrown forward in his chair, Voltese looked up just in time to see the creature's head. It was pressing its face against the ship's camera, its jaws gaping wide. And no. Please. His overwhelming fear didn't last long. The purple flames melted the entire bridge and Volte's frail, cybernetic body with it. Chapter 252. As Sihyun Yujin's transport ship barely cleared the atmosphere, an urgent report arrived from the flagship. The Star Union fleet has already arrived. She had known about the incoming fleet through satellites positioned at the outskirts of the star system. However, she didn't expect them to arrive this quickly. Moreover, the enemies had brought with them a warp finder, a device capable of tracking faster than light movements. It was as if they had come to track down someone specific. Could it be that they've discovered the location of Jax 1? The Megacorp and Star Union were officially at war. To the cyborgs, Si-Hyun's faction was just another enemy of the Star Union. The fact that a regular fleet had come to such an isolated location with a warp finder could only mean one thing. This isn't good. As long as the warp finder was present, the flagship was as good as on borrowed time. Even if they tried to escape via faster-than-light travel, the enemy would immediately follow. Her thoughts momentarily drifted to the artifacts stored in the transport ship. The weapon Abyssal Destroyer, used by Bayamo, her former mentor, to annihilate an outspeizer, along with the crystal battery that provided it with immense energy. If I used that, I could break through without much difficulty. The urge to use the weapon welled up inside her, but she shook her head. She still didn't fully understand the enemy's objectives or the current battle situation. There was no need to use the weapon until she had gathered more information. Any other notable details? Well. At Si-hyun's question, her subordinate hesitated before replying. According to communications from the flagship, they're currently engaged in combat with a group of creatures presumed to be Galagons. Galagons. The subordinate's answer was far beyond her expectations. Why Galagons? The Galagons are attacking the fleet, so the flagship is currently just observing without engaging. She had struggled with the Galagons when she first set foot on the planet, as they appeared regularly. In fact, their presence was a significant reason for her delayed entry into the volcano. She had deliberately kept changing her travel route to avoid the Galagons. I don't know how, but the unpredictable movements of these creatures had actually turned into an advantage for her. For now, we'll take advantage of this situation. Return to the flagship carefully, and avoid getting caught in the battle. Understood. Beyond the reinforced glass of the transport ship, she could see the twinkling of starlight. Some of those twinkles weren't stars. What is that? I had just taken out the fourth warp finder. As I discarded the now useless chunk of metal into space, an unfamiliar ship caught my eye. An oval-shaped vessel floated alone at a considerable distance from the battlefield. Judging by its design, it wasn't a Star Union ship but rather a megacorp vessel. Why is a megacorp ship here? Seeing the ship, something came to mind. Before I captured Oddgrad, when I raided the Hellside Hornet's nest, there was a time I devoured a human. The one who had fused with a human-faced creature mentioned that he had come here following Si-hyun Yujin. That must be her ship. Since Si-hyun Yujin had died by my hand, that vessel likely belonged to the forces that followed her. What should I do? It had been 20 minutes since the battle began. One warp finder still remained. The time I initially set for myself was 25 minutes. Although I'd like to learn more about the situation from the crew of that ship, I didn't have the luxury to spend time on side tasks. If there's time left, I'll deal with it. I tore my gaze away from the vessel and pursued the retreating fleet. The Zax 5 class high-speed battleship carrying the last warp finder seemed determined to buy time, desperately fleeing. As expected of a high-speed battleship, it's pretty fast. It was just barely slower than Adha. I prepared to finish it off with a psychic breath, but then the Galagons began to move. In the distance, the red-winged Adha relentlessly pursued the battleship. The other Galagons didn't follow but instead scattered in all directions. Upon closer observation, it became clear that the Galagons were spreading out, gradually closing in on the path the battleship was taking. They're hurting it. Just as they did when fighting a formidable foe like the Skywall, the Galagons were engaging in a coordinated hunt against the battleship. Then I should help out too. Instead of targeting the battleship, I aimed my psychic breath at the patrol ships blocking Adha's path. Focused on their immediate targets, the fleet of patrol ships fell to my breath, sinking into space. Adha, as if anticipating my attack, skillfully maneuvered to avoid the violet flames. She weaved through the debris of the burning patrol ships and accelerated even more. The crimson-winged dragon streaked through the night sky like a comet, drawing closer to the battleship. Her form, now a beam of light, approached the vessel in an instant. Anti-psychic disruptors, APD, spewed from the battleship, emitting waves that neutralized psychic power. However, Adha's speed was far too great, and the waves failed to reach her. She deftly dodged through the wave fields, unleashing a barrage of psychic breath. Each blast struck the ship's hull, forcing the battleship to retreat. Adha was pushing back a vessel hundreds, no, thousands of times her size. It was like watching David take down Goliath with a slingshot. Meanwhile, the Galagons surrounding the area steadily closed the distance. The battleship carrying the warp finder desperately tried to escape, but the Galagons had already drawn in close. Then, in unison, all the Galagons unleashed their dragon's breath upon the battleship. Even with the formidable defense of the Star Union ships, it was impossible to withstand the combined attack from multiple Galagons, all at least at the level of a white Galagon. This is the end. The final warp finder was destroyed. Now, nothing stood in the way of our escape. Just as I was about to instruct everyone to return to PS-111 ship, my secondary organs detected a powerful surge of energy. My head instinctively turned to the source of the energy. The previously empty void now contained a blue sun. It resembled a sun, but it was actually a massive concentration of energy, enough to tear apart space and forcibly transport objects. Faster than light travel. Moments later, The blue sun disappeared as if obscured by clouds. In its place appeared a fleet. A fleet far larger than the one we had been fighting until now. Zzz, everyone fall back. I withdrew, along with the Galagons, avoiding the sudden appearance of enemies. The surviving reconnaissance fleet ships flew toward the newly arrived Star Union fleet. Ow. While PS-111 had missed the approach of the reconnaissance unit, the arrival of this massive fleet was an entirely different issue. Faster-than-light travel requires an immense amount of energy. That's why tracking equipment, like the warp finder, can effectively detect such movements. Under normal circumstances, PS-111 would never have missed hundreds of ships moving simultaneously. Have they developed new technology? Even in simulations, control of space battles often hinged on who could arrive via faster-than-light travel first. Those who arrived earlier had the advantage of monitoring where and when their enemies would appear. It seemed the Grand Sovereign had recognized this weakness and had invested significant effort into improving their capabilities. And now, the results of those efforts were right before us. At that moment, a support ship controlled by PS-111 approached, and a telepathic wave from the Mother of the Sky reached me. It looks like they've applied stealth technology that hides faster-than-light travel energy. Zzz, it seems so. PS-111 believes that not the entire fleet has arrived yet. This is the 5th elite fleet. The 2nd, 8th, and 9th fleets haven't arrived. Now that I looked closer, the fleet wasn't as large as it should be if all 4 elite fleets had gathered. Had they all arrived, there would have been hundreds of battleships, but their numbers didn't seem to reach that scale yet. Furthermore, I calmly observed the enemy fleet shifting its formation. Some of the ships bore significant damage to their outer hulls, as if they had been sliced cleanly by a blade. These were marks left behind by issues encountered during faster-than-light travel. It seems the technology isn't perfect yet. The reason they rushed in so urgently despite the side effects wasn't hard to guess. The Grand Sovereign's plan was clear: to jump in sequence and prevent our escape, effectively trapping us. Zzz, how many warp finders are there? At least 10. Some of the ships are equipped with strong cloaking devices, making it impossible to get an accurate count. Engaging in battle without knowing the exact number of warp finders was tantamount to suicide. Yet running away wasn't a great option either. Just like the Galagons had done, they would surely use their numerical advantage to chase us down. A checkmate, is it? I glanced back at the Galagons and the ships behind me. There's only one option. The primary target, the enemy, or rather, the Grand Sovereign's player, saw it was obvious. Their goal is me. In that case, zzz, everyone, return to the ship. Elder. Zzz, don't worry. I have a good plan. I sent a reassuring wave to Adha, who looked concerned, and called out to the Mother of the Sky. Zzz, you know where to go to advance the deification stage, right? What? Don't tell me you're Zzz, meet me there. Are you insane? You plan to act as bait. Strictly speaking, it wasn't just bait. I intended to fight them off and then execute a faster-than-light jump toward the territory of the cult or the megacorp. That way, we could recreate a situation similar to when the cult and Star Union clashed previously. It's true that we'll be vulnerable during the jump preparation phase, but it'll be fine. Thanks to my transformation into the Bone Beast, my defensive capabilities have increased exponentially. It's already been proven that the enemy torpedoes can't inflict fatal damage on me. Additionally, the energy required for the jump can be substituted with the near-infinite supply of psychic power, pumped by my dragon's heart trait. The only real concern is the Grand Sovereign. My fate hinges on whatever weapon he brings. I've never been one to gamble. Still, it's better than losing everything in a fight with them. Leaving everyone behind, I flew forward. Since arriving in this world, I've constantly faced choices. Some led to positive outcomes, while others didn't. Looking back, I've always had a mix of good and bad decisions. But I've never regretted them. Because I'm still alive. And I don't know how many more wrong choices I might make. But even then, I'll keep living. Just as I have until now. As I flew forward with those thoughts, a red star soared alongside me. Adha. FreeNovel.co. It wasn't just her. Other Galagons had chosen not to return to the hangar and instead followed me. The same was true for PS-111's ship. Rather than preparing for faster-than-light travel, The colossal battleship floated above me, its turrets extending outward. If the big baby keeps saying bad things, she'll get scolded. Number 26's telepathic wave reached me from the ship. Adha-kin will not abandon. I sensed the telepathic wave Adha sent as she flew beside me. It's so like you morph back, always trying to fight alone. Mother of the Sky grumbled from aboard the ship. PS-111 told me to relay a message. It'll locate the warp finders as quickly as possible, so hold on. I was left speechless by their words. Was my heart full? No. Fighting alone here would have been a perfectly reasonable choice. I've always fought alone and emerged victorious. But as I watched those following me, another thought emerged. I've always won on my own, so if I fought alongside them, wouldn't it be even easier? In a morph, a sea demon, a host of Galagons, a colossal battleship, and a wolf. Ranker. With this force, we might stand a chance against over 100 state-of-the-art enemy ships. ZZZZZZZZ, start with torpedoes and breath attacks. In the end, after a thoroughly rational thought process, my chosen path was to fight together. Chapter 253. The battle had resumed. Ships under the control of cyborgs and androids rushed in like swarming ants. We pulled out all our weapons to respond. As the UPTS approached to contain the Galagons, a support ship managed by PS-111 blocked their path. Torpedoes loaded into the ship's cannons were fired, disrupting the movements of the drones. The patrol vessels maneuvered to evade the torpedo explosions and strike the support ship. The support ship had a limited supply of torpedoes, making it difficult to fire indiscriminately. As the support ship found itself in danger, a small craft emerged from the hangar. The Mother of the Sky, transformed into a griffon beast, took to the skies to draw the attention of the patrol ships. While the craft itself had ordinary specifications, its pilot was on another level. She expertly executed evasive maneuvers, breaking through the torrential barrage of torpedoes. Not only that, but she also opened fire with the storm gun mounted on the craft, targeting the bridge of the patrol ship. Though the storm gun couldn't inflict significant damage on the patrol ship, it was enough to divert the enemy's focus. Some of the patrol ships strayed from formation to pursue the Mother of the Sky. While the pilot's skills far surpassed those of the patrol vessels, the specs of the ships were overwhelmingly superior. With her tail in a precarious position, the small craft was getting increasingly dangerous when suddenly, a savior appeared. A red queen, adorned with red markings on her head and wings, accelerated like a comet and pierced through the patrol vessels. The surviving patrol ships fired their torpedoes, but the Mother of the Sky shot them all down with her storm gun. While the patrol vessels were stalling for time, the destroyers had moved into effective firing range and attempted a concentrated attack. I unleashed a psychic breath towards the clustered patrol ships near PS-111 before flying toward the destroyers. The destroyers shifted their target to me, unleashing a torrent of torpedoes. Thanks to the double and triple layers of my protective carapace, the pain wasn't severe. The explosions were bothersome, vibrating my auxiliary organs beneath my jaw. I charged forward, taking the barrage head-on. Tentacles erupted from my back, reaching out to ensnare different destroyers. I pulled the tentacles forcefully. The destroyers, larger than me, shook violently and collided with one another. Some attempted to escape but crashed into another destroyer while accelerating recklessly. The ships positioned at the rear launched torpedoes, but I used the destroyers as shields to absorb the attacks. The ships caught in my tentacles exploded, and cyborg crew members were ejected into space. They're holding their own. Everyone was showcasing combat skills that exceeded our expectations. None of the Galagons had sustained injuries, and both PS-111 and the Mother of the Sky were fighting valiantly. Moreover, we weren't the only ones fighting against the Star Union's fleet. I gazed toward the distant location of the White Planet, where flickering lights danced. The Megacorp battleships brought by Ji-hyun Yujin were also engaging in combat against the Star Union's forces. Thanks to their distraction over there, our burden here is lighter. However, it was uncertain how long this reprieve would last. While it seemed advantageous for us at the moment, the reality was different. Over there, numerous ships were still operational, and even more were expected to join the fray. It was fortunate that the Grand Sovereign was not present. His arrival would drastically tilt the tide of battle against us. We need a breakthrough. Since the engagement with the Fifth Fleet began, I had destroyed 4 battleships carrying warp finders. There were still at least 6 confirmed left, along with several hidden warp finders. Destroying them with breaths won't be easy. The enemies weren't foolish. They had only been caught off guard a few times. Now, the moment they sensed I was preparing to unleash a breath, they immediately scattered. Yet charging in as I had done until now, destroying one ship at a time, was time-consuming. The vessels carrying warp finders had begun to flee in every direction to evade me. I thought as I hurled the half-destroyed destroyers toward the enemies. What weapons do I have that could be useful against their ships? The abyssal hue is out of the question. The psychic breath enhanced by the abyssal hue specialized in destroying organic matter, while the augmented Watcher of Terror was only effective against non-organic entities. The psychic reflective armor wouldn't hold up against their torpedoes, as the enemy primarily used projectile-based weaponry. Should I go back now and consume the priest's golden spear? The priest's golden spear becomes exponentially more powerful the more blood it absorbs. By utilizing the effect of the plunderer's abnormal polyhedron, I would likely acquire its unique characteristics. If that were the case, I could gain devastating offensive capabilities in this battle, which was already producing mass casualties. But the downside is, if I do that, it'll become difficult to heal should I sustain serious injuries. Thanks to the dragon's heart, energy wouldn't be an issue, but healing from wounds posed a separate problem. To heal quickly when injured, I would need the Leech of Devouring Hands. If I consumed the priest's golden spear, I would have to forego the Leech of Devouring Hands. The remaining option is. As I clamped my jaws around a nearby battleship, I checked the text box with my eyes. The Great Infector. The fourth space monster type trait, the Great Infector, can enhance up to 3 effects among the infection and nesting categories, based on their type. Since I hadn't experimented with it yet, I was unsure how much enhancement it would provide. Then now is the time to experiment. I selected the Gremlin Moss as the enhancement target, a fusion trait related to infection. This trait secretes microorganisms that disrupt machines. The enhancement process began. Gremlin Moss enhancement settings are complete. Is that it? Despite the message in the text box, I felt no significant change in my body. I activated the enhanced Gremlin Moss, and the mutation occurred not within my body, but externally. The blunt claws that had been on my body vanished entirely. In their place, cylindrical, biopipe-like organs sprouted. From the holes in these pipes, something began to flow out. It resembled smoke billowing from a factory chimney. Thick, smog-like clouds poured out from the pipes, spreading around my body and into the surrounding area. What is this? I had acquired a similar trait when I became an adult, where biotubes formed on my back, emitting smoke to protect the main body. This was to compensate for the increased target area resulting from my larger size upon becoming an adult. However, the phenomenon occurring within my body now was on an entirely different level than the effects of the traits I gained upon maturation. The widespread smoke clouds clung to the nearby ships, causing their lights to extinguish completely. The ships, now devoid of light, ceased all movement and came to a complete stop. Even when I approached, there was no reaction from them. So this is the effect of spreading Gremlin Moss. The trait had been enhanced from temporarily incapacitating machines that touched my body to generating a cloud that disabled contacted machines. With this, things changed significantly. In a situation where I was battling machines, this was the ultimate trait. The only downside was that I couldn't directly control the movement of the smoke clouds. I smashed the immobilized ships and flew toward the battleships, providing support fire from the rear. They launched torpedoes at me, but it had little effect. The torpedoes, controlled by advanced technology, became inoperable the moment they made contact with the smoke clouds, or rather, the gremlin clouds. I gracefully evaded the torpedoes floating in space and dove into the area where the ships were clustered, accompanied by the deadly gremlin clouds. Damage to the hull from torpedoes has surpassed 25%. Switch the ship's movement program to the Peter Edgerton style and add 5% energy allocation to the thrusters. Understood. Squad D of the fighters has been wiped out. Remaining units in Squad B, 5. Squad B, return. For the remaining squads A, C, E, and F, also begin the sequential return of damaged fighters. Understood. This is the flagship. The crew moved in perfect unison under Ji Hyun Eugen's commands. In the central command room, the status of the ship and the attacking Star Union fleet were displayed in a 3D hologram. While the subordinates busily carried out their tasks, Ji Hyun focused her cold gaze on the hologram. This is not an easy battle. The flagship's cloaking device, equipped with Edgerton's secret weapon, boasted considerable performance. However, the enemy had superior detection equipment. Additionally, They had brought numerous warp finders, making it impossible for us to hide or escape. If they fall. Currently, we were managing to hold against the Galagons and an unidentified fleet, fighting the 5th Elite Fleet, but that wouldn't last forever. If the Galagons were annihilated, we would become their next target. Do I have to use that? Though her eyes were fixed on the hologram, her mind was focused on the object resting beneath her chair. Her father, Zhongwu Yujin's legacy. She had yet to use that weapon. However, she had sensed the potential danger when she acquired it. The artifact found within a massive volcano was composed of 2 parts, the weapon known as Abyssal Destroyer and a crystal battery that supplied energy. It had a simple structure where the battery could be attached to the weapon for energy output, but the issue lay with the energy itself. After recovering the battery from the volcano, strange occurrences began to unfold. The previously inoperative communication systems were restored shortly after, and during their escape, they encountered no beasts whatsoever. It was as if the monsters were avoiding her group. This alone indicated that the weapon possessed incredible power. Yet the reason for her hesitation remained. She interpreted the weapon as setting its lethal targets based on genetic information. Cyborgs were humans equipped with machines. Attacking cyborgs was akin to attacking humans. If misused, even the pilots of the fighter crafts engaged in battle with the enemies could be killed instantly. If no fighters remained but enemies were still alive, it would be the end for them. Therefore, Jihyun had been waiting for an opportunity to arise. Then, a subordinate's voice reached her ears. Emergency report. Large-scale energy concentration detected. The Star Union's additional support fleet is preparing for superluminal travel. What? At those words, her mind snapped back to attention. Behind her, her butler, Min-suk Yujin, shouted urgently. What's the estimated time of arrival? Within 5 minutes. There was no time left for hesitation. She had to make a decision now. Then, another subordinate reported in a hurry. The enemy fleet is concentrating at one point. Are they trying to protect the support fleet preparing for superluminal travel? Why yes, but it's strange. It's at a considerable distance from the energy concentration point. A mysterious entity is gathering the ships. I will connect to the fighter craft cameras. Soon, a low-quality video appeared on the hologram. A multitude of battleships and destroyers was gathered at a location quite far from the fighters. Even someone who had never witnessed space combat would find their formation odd. Due to their size, the battleships had to maintain a distance from one another. Yet the ships shown in the footage were clustered together, close enough that collision seemed imminent. Moreover, there was something even stranger. Why are there no lights? Is it the effect of cloaking? No light could be seen from the ships as they huddled closer together, as if their power had been forcibly cut off. It seems the ship's functions have been disabled. Imp. Who the hell did this? As Min-suk and the crew were thrown into confusion, Jihyun noticed something moving between the ships. A cloud of smoke, whose composition was unknown, was rapidly weaving between the vessels. The moment a battleship touched the cloud, its lights went out, and like the others, it transformed into a hunk of scrap metal. Seeing that, Jihyun immediately stood up. Recall all fighter teams to the flagship. And prepare the superluminal engine for an immediate jump when I return. Jihyun, what are you? Min-suk, I'm leaving you in charge of the operations. After assigning the ship's command to Min-suk, Jihyun grabbed the artifact that had been beside her and exited the command room. Jihyun. What are you doing? Come back right now. Ignoring Min-suk's voice echoing through the speakers, she quickly raced to the hangar. The opportunity is now. I didn't know the identity of the creature enveloped in the smoke cloud, but it had presented a fantastic chance. Upon arriving at the hangar, instead of boarding a fighter, she opened the door and jumped straight into space. As she entered the zero-gravity environment, the white exosuit she wore, White Maiden, activated. A white helmet-like apparatus covered her face, and wings with thrusters protruded from her back. The thrusters kicked in, propelling her forward with great force. Fighters returning to the flagship, debris from damaged spaceships, and torpedoes and energy beams darting everywhere, she navigated through numerous obstacles and activated the weapon in her hand. The crystal battery within the weapon began to emit a chilling light and spun rapidly. On the Zax-1 class battleship piloted by the commander of the 5th Elite Fleet, the Nemi Fleet, a member of the Machine Council, Nemi 5, sat upon a throne forged of steel. His body, twice the size of a standard android, was adorned with numerous cables resembling flowing hair. Numi 5, with his unusual appearance, had his eyes closed. Currently, he controlled the entire fleet through the long cables draping around him. In this metal and machine-constructed mental world, vast amounts of information were flowing back and forth. Numi 5. Report from Arrow 9. The Ninth Fleet is prepared for superluminal travel. Report from Europa 2, Redtail 8. Fleets 2 and 8 have achieved 80% energy charge. Menebo report. Failed to analyze the substance being ejected from special target A. Kazansky reports. It is presumed to have an effect equivalent to Yempi. Shimurabi requests. Please allow the use of the ship's main cannon. Numi 5. Denied. Special target A possesses resistance to energy-type weapons. It is deemed effective to buy time until fleets 2, 8, and 9 arrive. Numi 5's focus was currently concentrated on special target A. The fleet he commanded was being obliterated in real time as if caught by metallic gremlins. Or perhaps that was indeed the case. They were using imp attacks to incapacitate the Star Union's ships. The moment a ship came into contact with the fine particles he dispersed, all its functions ceased immediately. Whether it affected machines directly or not, even torpedoes controlled by AI could not hit him properly. The clouds of fine particles wrapped around his body caused them to halt mid-flight. As a result, the losses for the Fifth Fleet were severe. If no other fleets were on their way, they would have had to retreat. Report from Arrow 9. The Ninth Fleet will enter superluminal travel in 1 minute and 12 seconds. Report from Europa 2, Redtail 8. Fleets 2 and 8 are prepared for superluminal travel. In a few minutes, Numi 5 would achieve victory. If he could secure the corpse of Special Target A, deep research would become possible. At that moment, a report came in from the cyborg captain of another ship. An unidentified flying object was launched from a megacorp ship, and it was moving toward them. Numi 5 concluded that it was an imp torpedo. The patrol ships, having received his orders, moved to intercept the torpedoes. They would be shot down, and the megacorp ships would be dealt with as soon as the other high-ranking officials arrived. This reasoning seemed sufficiently logical, but what followed surpassed his calculations. Kazansky. Unidentified flying object emitting unknown wavelengths. The cyborg captain's report was abruptly cut off. Then, countless reports and messages ceased all at once. It was as if there was an issue with auditory functions, only silence lingered. He issued another command to confirm the situation, but no one responded. Something was wrong. Numi 5 urgently sent his consciousness into his dormant physical body. Once the transfer was complete, he opened his eyes wide atop the steel throne. The situation captured by his camera-like eyes was entirely different from usual. The cyborgs meant to assist him lay sprawled on the command room floor. An analysis through the lenses confirmed that all had ceased functioning. The command room was a grave for the cyborgs. No, perhaps this was not the only place like that. He synchronized the ship's external cameras with his visual functions. All the cameras of the Zax 1 class battleship became his eyes. Thanks to that, he realized that this situation was not confined to his ship. Numerous vessels under the Fifth Fleet were deviating from formation and moving erratically. All this was due to the sudden deaths of the cyborg captains. With their commanders gone, the ship AIs were stuck repeating their previously issued orders. This behavior was exactly as reported by the cyborg captain. The Fifth Fleet suffered near total devastation due to an unidentified weapon fired by the megacorp. Numi 5 immediately contacted the other fleets. He ordered them to halt superluminal travel and remain on standby. Most importantly, he emphasized that the High Commander must not come here under any circumstances. Then came a communication from the High Commander, who seemed confused. "Me. What's going on?" Numi 5 reporting. "Chairman, an unidentified wavelength has spread here. It is presumed to inflict fatal damage on cyborgs." "What do you mean by that? Who did this?" Numi 5's gaze, connected through the cameras, caught a glimpse of Special Target A. The creature paused for a moment at the chaos surrounding it, then unleashed an overwhelming amount of flames. Was this what it felt like facing the sun? It poured forth nearly infinite psychic power, turning the ships into scrap metal. Numi 5 struggled to influence the ship AIs, but the clouds of fine particles emanating from the creature obstructed his efforts. After incinerating most of the battleships, the creature ceased its attack, cleared the clouds of fine particles, and turned its body. The Galagons, who had been battling with patrol ships elsewhere, retreated alongside Special Target A. Numi 5. I recommend we first ascertain the cause. I propose we halt operations. Arrow 9 agrees. Redtail 8 agrees. Are you telling me to let it go when it's right in front of us? Do you really think that makes sense? The High Commander Chewbacca, expressing intense anger, fell silent after reviewing the video data shared by Nemi 5. The second high-ranking official, Europa 2, quickly analyzed the footage and sent a communication. Europa 2 agrees. Chairman, there are currently wavelengths present in this area that pose a lethal threat to cyborgs. I recommend that you ensure your safety before advancing. In this place, there existed threats to both androids and cyborgs. Special Target A had the capability to incapacitate both androids and ships, while the unidentified object fired by the Megacorp had an instant kill effect on cyborgs. With both present, proceeding with operations would incur excessive damage. Thus, the 4 high-ranking officials effectively decided to suspend the mission. They were machines that existed for the preservation of the Star Union. They had an obligation to protect Chewbacca, the most important entity in the Star Union, at all costs. Of course, if the High Commander insisted on proceeding, they would have no choice but to comply. However, none of the high-ranking officials believed Chewbacca would act in such a reckless manner. He wasn't a fool. He couldn't possibly be unaware that the issues arising here were far from ordinary. Moreover, he knew better than anyone what could happen if his safety were compromised. Damn it. That bastard Amorph is right there. Baeliyatamyahiki is knocked, damn it. With a shout that was either a roar or a scream, Chewbacca's voice faded from communication. Meanwhile, in Nemi 5's line of sight, Special Target A, the Galagons, and the Megacorp battleship were engulfed in blue light. Moments later, nothing remained at their previous location but blue particles. Chapter 254. Several superluminal jumps had taken place, yet no pursuers followed. All that could be seen was a black velvet sky adorned with multicolored stars. I returned to the ship through the open hangar bay. Inside the hangar, Griffon Wolf, Mother of the Sky, was inspecting the aircraft. She was examining the storm gun mounted under the wing when she noticed me entering and spoke up. Any signs of pursuit? ZZ, none. That wavelength from before, could that be why they couldn't follow us? ZZ, who knows? Thanks to the sudden anomaly, we managed to escape from the Star Union. An intangible wavelength had swept in from somewhere, decimating the enemy fleet. Since I was facing the enemy directly, I understood what had occurred right away. The captains, all dead. Ships that halted mid-movement or repeated the same actions could mean only one thing: the cyborg captains who controlled them were dead. After the wavelength swept through the area, the ships never returned to normal. In the Star Union, if a cyborg capable of connecting to the ship's computer with a cable, like PS-111, was on board, they could temporarily take over command. In other words, the fact that the ships didn't recover despite the flames I breathed suggested that all the cyborgs aboard were dead. There wasn't any event like this in the game, right? ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ We were lucky. She was right. What if that wavelength hadn't targeted just the cyborgs but all living beings? Or if it had occurred after we lost to the Star Union? If that were the case, not everyone would have made it out unharmed like we did. But it wasn't entirely luck. The anomaly that had occurred at the right moment wasn't beneficial solely to us. There was the fleet led by the remnant forces of Si Hyun Yujin. They, too, had been engaged in battle with the Star Union fleet. The Neonman Beast mentioned it before. The remnant forces of Si Hyun Yujin had visited a frozen planet in search of a relic. Perhaps the wavelength that wiped out the cyborgs was related to the relic they found. It's uncertain, but there's little chance we'll encounter them in the near future. Our ship is headed to a place beyond the control of the Megacorps, the Star Union, or the Cult Empire. It's also a place where information is easy to obtain. Maybe I'll look into it. Anyway, now that you're back, I should take a break. ZZZZ, you've worked hard. Hardly. Mother of the Sky and I left the hangar together. She seemed to be heading somewhere else to rest, not back to the storage area, and was about to head in the opposite direction. ZZZZZZ, wait a moment. Oh. I called out to her and headed into the storage area. Inside, number 26, having enlarged its body, was resting in front of the wall. It had fully extended its usually hidden fin legs and was wrapping them around something. What's it doing? Between the fins, I could see Galagon eggs. Much like a hen brooding her eggs, Number 26 was using its body and fins to protectively cover them. The green Galagons were fine, but the blue Galagons and the eggs required psychic power for survival. That's why number 26, capable of generating psychic power on its own, was ensuring the eggs wouldn't perish. That's another issue to address. I carefully entered the storage area, taking care not to wake it. A few green Galagons were also lying between the frozen containers, sleeping. Amidst them was the backpack filled with the items and equipment I'd taken from the dragon's nest. I extended my long, spider-like combat arm and picked up one of the mineral fragments. When I emerged from the storage area, she, who had been yawning, promptly closed her mouth. I held the mineral out to her. "ZZ, take it." "What's this?" "ZZZZZZZZ, it's for your deification." She widened her eyes upon seeing the raw mineral in my hand. The black mineral, speckled with white grains, was known as a star pearl. It was used to craft the tools necessary for enhancing Wolf's deification. It's not something we can process right now, though. Star pearls are extremely hard, making them impossible to process with ordinary equipment. But that didn't matter. The place we're headed would have the machinery and technicians needed to refine them. As she took the beautiful mineral that resembled a pearl plucked from the stars, she gazed at it with a subtle expression. "Oh, I had already taken one of these before." "ZZZZ, you took one?" "Yes, when Hamort and I returned to the nest. I mentioned that we would be looking around with PS-111. I picked it up then. I stowed it in the backpack, but I guess you didn't see it." Now that I thought about it, it had been quite a while since I'd carried the backpack myself. The last time I rummaged through it was when I was preparing to consume the Blood River. Since then, Adha and Mother of the Sky had been taking care of the backpack. "ZZZZZZZZZ, keep it, just in case." "Sure. It can't hurt to have one more." Having nothing more to say, I started heading back into the storage area, but she called out to me. She scratched her beak with her talon and spoke. "Thank you. I'll make good use of it." She left behind a wave of gratitude before walking away. Star pearls have other uses aside from deification. The mineral is also used in crafting the cult's and Wolf's high-end equipment. As long as it can be processed, it would be more than beneficial for her. After seeing her off, I re-entered the storage area. Might as well check the backpack. Returning to the spot where I had pulled out the star pearl, I crouched down and picked up the backpack. As I did so, a diamond-shaped stone, which had been leaning against it, toppled over. This stone was one of the items I had picked up from Odgrad's lair. Along with the ring that conceals emotions, it was one of the artifacts influenced by civilization, so I had intentionally brought it along to investigate further. "I'll check it later, huh?" As I reached out to set the stone upright, I noticed something had changed. Unknown characters etched into the stone surface were now emitting a faint glow. "What's this?" I touched the glowing characters with my finger, but nothing happened. They simply continued to emit light intermittently, as if this was how they always behaved. I tried tapping it with the monster's tendrils, the auxiliary organs under my jaw, and even my erosion tentacles, but nothing changed. Meanwhile, the light gradually dimmed. Could it be? Odgrad's ring came to mind. I picked up the ring lying near the backpack and slipped it onto the small arm on my chest. Immediately, the stone reacted. Temporary user Odgrad confirmed. Establishing connection with Akira Eugen. What? A familiar-looking text box appeared before my eyes, and at the same time, the stone floated out of my hand. From the suspended stone, a strange voice began to flow. "It's me. What took you so long?" I was about to reach out later since there was no response for such a while. "What's going on?" "TCH, since you've answered, I'll ask, what happened with the matter I mentioned earlier?" The voice belonged to a man whose age was difficult to discern. The voice itself sounded young, yet his tone and manner of speaking resembled that of an elderly person. My attention shifted to the message displayed on the text box. There, the identity of the speaker was recorded. Akira Eugen. Jason had mentioned him before. A man with a Japanese-sounding name, behaving like an old man stuck in a delusional second adolescence, clinging to his Chinabu tendencies even within the megacorps. There's only one guy that eccentric. Akira Eugen, a player ranked 3rd overall, even more relentless in hunting down the amorph than Jason. He's a megacorp ranker I've fought countless times. I never thought he'd be connected to the Black Dragon. Now it all made sense. The one who gave Odgrad the ring was Akira Eugen. Odgrad had feared challenges from younger Galagons or those like Adha, who were born with the power of a red Galagon, due to his ability to read the future. Akira Eugen was the one who provided a solution to this dilemma. So, he was the one who made it. By giving Odgrad the ring that concealed emotions, Akira Eugen ensured that the Black Dragon could oppress and rule over the other Galagons. And in return for this favor, what did Akira Eugen receive? Galagons. Amort once mentioned that Odgrad regularly killed hatchlings or discarded eggs outside the nests, claiming that it was to reduce the strain on the group by eliminating weaker members. When I first heard that, I thought he did it just to protect himself, but my assumption was only half correct. Odgrad was regularly supplying eggs and young Galagons to Akira Eugen's faction. This would explain why the Eugen family members I fought, including Si-hyun Eugen and the Shadows, all possessed Galagon genes. It was all possible because Akira Eugen was receiving a supply of Galagons from Odgrad. Why aren't you answering? Have you still not dealt with the Amorph? Judging by his words, it seemed he had already spoken about me before I arrived. Most likely, he had ordered my capture or execution. The future-reading Black Dragon truly is a formidable opponent. If it weren't for the unique traits created by the Transcendent System and my allies, things would have gone just as he planned. I stared at the stone for a moment before finally speaking. The voice of the human-faced beast I had absorbed, Jason's voice, emerged from my throat. Long time no see, number 3. Perhaps because he had never anticipated hearing that voice, I heard him gasp on the other side of the stone. You didn't see this coming, did you? You bastard. Your pet is dead. Even without seeing his face, I knew how furious he was. Not only had his plan to kill me failed, but he had also lost his route to acquire Galagons. In a detached tone, I declared his fate. The day we meet isn't far off. TCH. With a sharp click of his tongue, the light in the stone extinguished. A moment later, a crack spread across its surface and it shattered in two. Seeing this, I knew he understood exactly what I meant. It won't be right away, but it'll be when I reach maturity. I plan to meet the final conditions needed to mature at the places where this ship was headed, places prowled by the lawless of the universe. Once I become fully mature, I'll no longer need to speak to him through this stone. I'll be meeting him face to face. By then, he will only have two choices left. To die fighting me, or to die running from me. Thoughts of what to do next swirled endlessly in my mind. But regardless of my inner deliberations, the iron cradle carrying all the monsters continued steadily toward its destination. In a lavish office, Akira Eugen glared icily at the mahogany table in front of him. There lay a diamond-shaped stone etched with strange symbols. He had immediately destroyed the stone he'd loaned to Odgrad, but that didn't make things any better. The conversation hadn't been long, but if that damned Amorph was involved, it would have extracted a wealth of information even from that brief exchange. It always did so in the game. Knowing this, Akira's insides burned like a raging volcano. Damn. 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 And then there was the Amorph's parting taunt. It had dared to declare that it would kill him. Akira Eugen, the CEO of one of the most powerful factions in the universe, the Megacorp and the ruler of Earth. If anyone else had said such a thing, he would have torn them limb from limb with a smile. Even Jubica, the Star Union's ranker, and Chloe Garmalda, the Megacorp ranker, would never dare speak to him that way. They knew he'd hunt them down and rip their mouths apart if they did. But at this moment, he could do nothing to the Amorph. He wanted to hurl curses, but he couldn't. There was a chance that doing so might divulge more information to it. As this realization sank in, Akira reached his breaking point. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr mutated. Grotesquely, the monstrous limb lashed out, splintering the mahogany table into 4 pieces. Several other luxury items met the same fate under his frenzied assault. Odd grad. Juana soon. You idiots. How dare you? Do you even know who I am? Lark. Inside the soundproofed office, Akira's frenzied rampage continued for some time. Have you received the cargo I sent, Chloe? Yes, of course. Thanks to Cynthia, I think the research is going to make significant progress. Please don't forget to ensure my safety. Don't worry. That place is out of the old man's reach. I suppose, seeing it for myself, I can believe that. I've already smoothed things over on that side, so there shouldn't be any issues. Let's talk again soon. Understood, Chloe. As the light on the diamond-shaped stone connected to the communicator dimmed, Chloe Garmalda, who had just ended her call with Cynthia, floated out of the room in her levitating chair. Cynthia's hidden safely, and that old bastard's got a taste of real trouble. I've lost contact with Jubica, but he's always busy, so I'm sure he'll manage. Chloe felt satisfied for the first time in a while, as things were finally going smoothly. Previously, Akira Eugen, Cynthia, Jubica, and Chloe herself had planned a hunt for the Amorph. Cynthia provided the location to the cult ranker Jason, while Akira Eugen sent the Black Galagon to kill the target. After the meeting ended, Chloe had a private conversation with Cynthia. She'd made one specific request. In the unlikely event that Jason succeeded or failed in the Amorph hunt, she wanted to be the first to know. Currently, Chloe was independently conducting research into genetically synthesized organisms, or Hulk mutants, alongside Jubica from the Star Union. And what she needed most for that were the genes of rankers. If the Amorph were killed, Akira Eugen would undoubtedly demand the corpse. Unlike the surprisingly unsophisticated Jason, who'd be satisfied with obtaining a special trait, he would easily hand the body over to Akira. That couldn't be allowed. So Chloe had asked Cynthia, who was in personal contact with Jason, for a favor. The outcome of the battle was Jason's defeat. He returned to Cynthia with only his decapitated body. Immediately, Cynthia informed Chloe of Jason's death, and it was then that Chloe made a deal with her. She assured Cynthia that she would guarantee her safety, as long as she didn't inform Akira that Jason was dead. If Akira Eugen learned of Jason's defeat, he would undoubtedly concoct another scheme to capture the Amorph. Not only that, but he would also try to claim Jason's corpse. So, she delayed informing him about Jason's death by just a little. I didn't expect things to work out so perfectly. Under normal circumstances, Akira Eugen would have caught on. With the Black Galagon stationed on the same planet, he could have easily verified Jason's defeat. But this time, fate was on her side. Akira Eugen had been preoccupied with negotiations to end the civil war and was too busy to grasp the full situation. Thanks to that, Chloe accomplished her goal without much difficulty. Jason left so much behind, even in death. His body and all those samples. Her levitating chair halted in front of the laboratory door. From the terminal beside the door, a faint light scanned her entire body. "Welcome, Chloe Garmalda." The familiar voice greeted her as the heavy metal door opened. A pristine, monochromatic space lay beyond, as if the entire room had been bleached. The floor, walls, and ceiling were all a stark white. The only splashes of color came from the researchers bustling about and the dozens of incubation chambers. One of the researchers, noticing Chloe, bowed to her. "Madam, the progress on the clone cultivation has reached 23%. It's far more stable compared to the previous specimen. That's good news. Once it reaches over 50%, initiate the gene fusion." "Understood. But madam, Chief Researcher Li Zhao has been wondering where you managed to obtain such materials." As the researcher moved closer to her chair, Chloe placed a finger over her lips, gesturing that it was a secret. "Tell him it's classified family information." "Aha, of course. Ah, since we have a new specimen, perhaps you'd like to name it again." At this, Chloe tapped the armrest of her chair with her finger. After a moment of contemplation, she spoke. "Let's go with JS this time." "JS. Last time it was PS, does it have any special meaning?" Instead of answering, Chloe responded with a faint smile. Seeing that she wasn't going to explain, the researcher shrugged and refrained from asking further. "I wonder just how useful Jason will prove to be." With that thought, she gazed at the cult clone within the incubation chamber. Her eyes, beautiful as a young girl's, shimmered with a tranquil madness. Chapter 255. The space was filled with cocoons. She was used to seeing the big one go into a cocoon to grow stronger, it wasn't the first time. Extending one of her tendrils, she touched the cocoon. The warmth on the surface, the rough, wave-like pulses, all familiar sensations. The chaotic blend of senses and elements were ones she'd experienced before. She perceived the world around her through a mystical force, sensing movements and objects with her entire being. Unlike other animals, she didn't divide her senses into smelling, seeing, or hearing. Yet, this didn't mean her perception was any less keen. When she focused, she could sense an area far beyond the giant stone that emitted a foul, unpleasant smell. But what she felt now was different. For the first time, she was sensing the thoughts of an entirely different creature, the one within the cocoon connected to her tendril, the big one's thoughts. She hadn't always had this ability. It was only recently that she gained the power to read other creatures' thoughts and relay them, using the innate force she'd been born with. Her friend knew how to extract thoughts from the bad friends and make them its own. When the big one saw this, it rejoiced. If she didn't know something, it was always best to learn from her friend. If her friend could do it, she believed she could too. With this simple reasoning, she learned how her friend manipulated its powers. Though she wasn't as skilled yet, she believed she would improve as she grew. Indeed, her abilities had greatly improved after helping the little one and the little one's mother share their thoughts. Now, she could sense the big one's thoughts much more clearly. The big one inside the cocoon was walking through a place. It was vast, similar to her homeland, but with a very strange scent. The stinging, unpleasant odor reminded her of when she was imprisoned long ago. Though it made her uneasy, she endured it. The big one must have been frightened being alone in such a strange place. She wanted to stay by its side to comfort it. Fortunately, the big one seemed to sense her intentions, gradually calming down. When it reached a dead end, it raised its long appendage and pressed it against the wall. As the wall shifted away, revealing a space she had never seen before. Little one. The familiar mental wave startled her awake. She quickly pulled her tendril away from the cocoon, her consciousness returning to the unpleasant-smelling stone's belly. What are you doing? Nothing. The little one tilted its protruding sensory organs in confusion at her strange answer. She hadn't done anything wrong, but she felt reluctant to speak about it, so she mumbled evasively. Luckily, the little one wasn't interested in her odd behavior. Instead, it was curious about something else. Will the big one change again? Yes. It'll grow stronger. In response, the little one shook its sensory organs rapidly. If it gets any bigger, it'll be a problem. Why? It's good to be big and strong. If it grows bigger, laying eggs will be difficult. Suddenly, she felt incredibly displeased. The little one is not ready to lay eggs yet. Why? You promised me that I could lay eggs once I became white and completed my growth. You're still not an adult. The big one already acknowledged me as an adult. The little one's logical argument left her speechless. Once the big one's growth is complete, I will ask it to lay eggs with me. The little one and the big one are both still children. Children can't make babies. I'm not certain yet. I need to confirm it. The little one seemed determined this time, showing no sign of backing down. As it had pointed out, she had no justification to stop their mating. She had promised not to interfere once it reached maturity. freewebnovel.com. Moreover, the little one had protected its family, fulfilling the duties of a leader. Though small in size, it was already a full-fledged adult. Yet, she didn't want to acknowledge this. The thought of the big one and the little one mating filled her with intense displeasure, so much so that she felt she could destroy this foul-smelling stone entirely. The big one is busy. It won't have time to make babies. Reproduction is important. The species must prosper. Eggs are necessary. As she matured, she seemed to have become smarter. Each time Adha spoke, the little one immediately retorted. She tried to find something that could silence that impudent child, but nothing came to mind. In the end, she turned to the middle one. Middle one, the big one can't have children right now, can he? Well. Friend. I said. I don't know. Friend. Talking. Won't help. It's not wrong, but something about it feels unpleasant. She thought the middle one would take her side. However, the middle one's response was different from what she expected. I think it's possible, though. I heard. Friend. Said. That. Really. The big one can actually have children. Listen until the end. The big one can't, lay eggs right now. See? I was right, the big one can't have children. Incorrect. Friend. Said. Right now. Later. Egg. Production. Possible. You two are quite sharp. Or should I say you've grown? The middle one scratched its protruding sensory organ with one of its appendages. Considering their time together, the middle one seemed to feel troubled by the questions from both her and the little one. What do you mean? Well, it's a bit complicated to explain, but I guess you could say the big one isn't fully mature yet, so it can't lay eggs. I don't understand. For details, ask the big one directly. Agreed. We'll check. Directly. In the end, even the middle one couldn't stop the little one. There was no way left to restrain the little one. Now, the only option left was to stop it by force. However, punishing it without a good reason didn't seem right. If the little one was a bad child, it might be a different story, but it wasn't fair to hit it without cause. As she thought about this, a memory surfaced in her mind. She remembered how, when she connected the little one's thoughts with its mother's, she saw how the little one's mother made it. Wait. Still. Have more to say. Yes. If you want to mate with the big one, you'll have to compete with me. Both the little one and the middle one tilted their protruding sensory organs in confusion at her words. Why? Compete with me, little one. Because I will also mate with the big one. The little one's family had a different mating process than her own. Although both had a single head of the family and multiple partners, there was a specific order for mating in the little one's family. The strongest or the longest standing partner mated first. Upon hearing her declaration, the little one fell silent. It understood what she meant. Little one. You like the big one? Yes. I said I'd mate first. Little one. Next. No, I'm stronger than you, and I've been with the big one longer. Incorrect. I've grown. She felt a familiar force emanating from the little one. It was a power similar to, yet different from, the one she possessed. The little one used that power when catching prey or disciplining bad children. The little one intended to fight her. She was about to unleash her power, but the middle one stepped in between them. Wait. It's not my place to say this, but if you're going to fight, do it outside. If you do it here, the big one won't like it. Agreed. Hearing those words, she withdrew her power immediately. The little one did the same. Together, they headed outside, leaving the smelly stone cave. Adha was more tense than ever. She never imagined she'd be in a mating competition with a member of her own species. She had the most alluring tail, but her body was small. She believed that only the big one could truly cherish someone like her. After all, finding a male as robust and wild-horned as the big one was nearly impossible. Even though his tail was rather thick for a male, she could easily overlook that flaw. Because she was an adult, after all. Her kin knew her feelings, and so no one dared to vie for the big one's attention. Adha never thought she would compete with anyone else for the big one. Least of all, against the little one. She glared at the figure standing in the distance on the white snow. It appeared to be a small, fragile creature, unlike anything else found on this planet. But Adha knew better. The small creature she called the little one possessed incredible strength. It was as powerful as her own mother. Although facing such a formidable opponent alone was daunting, Adha was confident. Gifted with the power of the stars, she had grown immensely stronger than before. In her assessment, the only ones clearly stronger than her were the big one and Odgrad the liar. All others were opponents she could handle. As her thoughts reached that point, she began to feel her excitement rising. The blood of a fierce predator that lay dormant within her began to awaken. She knew that strong males often mated with multiple females. It was only a matter of time before the big one would do the same. But she couldn't give up her place as the big one's first mate. She respected the little one but not enough to relinquish the position of being the big one's first partner. This isn't a hunt. We'll hold back our strength. Got it. Understood. Responding to the middle one's words, Adha began to draw on the power of the stars. In that moment, the little one launched the first attack. A long tentacle emerged from the little one's body and struck her head. It was a familiar action, something the little one did when disciplining her, but the force was on a whole other level. If Adha hadn't enveloped her head with the power of the stars, she would have lost consciousness from that blow. Having blocked the initial strike, Adha retaliated. Compressed energy shot from her mouth, aimed at the little one. However, the little one casually waved a tentacle, nullifying Adha's attack. But this was within Adha's expectations. The moment she fired her attack, she leapt forward, just as the big one would. In an instant, she closed the distance between them. She intended to ram into her opponent, but the little one blocked her. An invisible force bound her tightly, constricting her movements. But her wings, infused with the power of the stars, were still free. Adha did as the big one would. She swung her wings as a weapon with all her might. The little one, seemingly unprepared for this, hurriedly raised its tentacles to block the attack. The sharp membrane of her wings sliced through the little one's tentacle. It was the first time she had managed to wound the little one, having never even dared to resist before. A mix of exhilaration and guilt surged through her, but that was her mistake. Without flinching, the little one swung another tentacle. Adha quickly enveloped her head with star power to block the attack. The moment the tentacle struck, the air trembled, and her neck bones screamed in agony. The force was so intense that it overwhelmed the star power shielding her. Still, she was fine. Her head remained unscathed. As she thought this, the little one's wavelength touched her tentacle. "You've grown a lot, little one. I won't hold back anymore." Before Adha could comprehend the meaning, she felt herself being lifted high into the sky against her will. The little one had taken control of the force that bound her. And then she saw it. All the ice around the little one cracked and began to rise into the air. Hey. I told you to take it easy. I said the little one is grown up now, so this much is fine. The ship will get caught up in this." By then, the little one had grown several times larger than Adha. Countless tentacles sprouted from its body, and a powerful force radiated from it, akin to the strength felt from the big one. What happened next was hazy. An overwhelming number of ice chunks flew toward Adha, and she was too occupied with fending them off. Her latent star power was far from insignificant, but she wasn't capable of blocking an endless barrage of attacks without pause. Eventually, drained of energy, Adha was struck by one of the little one's tentacles and collapsed. "I won, so that's the end of the baby talk. No more asking the big one for eggs." That was the last thing she heard before losing consciousness. All she could do was nod in agreement. But deep inside, Adha made up her mind. She was born with unfavorable odds, yet she had become the queen of her kin. The word give up wasn't in her vocabulary. With a firm resolve to one day mate with the big one, she passed out. Chapter 256. Before humanity ventured into space, other intelligent beings had already done so. These beings were frail in body but were blessed by the gods with extraordinary powers. Guided by the providence set by their gods, they ventured into space and called themselves the cult. At first, they could barely travel between moons. The gods' blessings hadn't extended to aiding their journey into space. But the cult did not give up. Instead of relying solely on their innate psychic power, they devoted themselves to technological development. Their lunar voyages eventually led to the exploration of planets and colonization within their star system. From a small planet, these intelligent beings eventually built an empire spanning multiple star systems. In the grand scheme of the universe, however, this was but a fleeting moment. Countless civilizations had risen and fallen before them, and theirs would be no different. The cult empire's prosperity was short-lived. Internal strife, corruption among the rulers, and ceaseless wars rapidly shortened the empire's lifespan. As a result, their former glory is now but a shadow of what it once was. The Kesha Arma space fortress is one of the many remnants left behind by that once luminous empire. If translated into megacorp terms, Kesha Arma means the wealthy king. This space fortress was established to protect a mining planet. In the days of the empire's prosperity, mining ships from various races would frequently use this fortress. True to its name, this place was a center of the empire's wealth. Had the mining planet's resources not been depleted, it might still be that way today. Once the resources of the planet that justified the fortress's existence were exhausted, Kesha Arma's importance plummeted. In an era when the empire was in decline, it had no means to maintain a fortress that yielded no profit. What was once a key strategic point just 100 years ago had now become a complete burden. When the costs of maintaining the fortress far exceeded the benefits, the empire made a simple decision: to abandon the space fortress that marked the end of their golden age. With the withdrawal of the cult's warship stationed there, the space fortress was left unclaimed. Technically, it still belonged to the cult empire, but in reality, it had no administrators or military presence. Those who remained were the ones who made a living by catering to miners or those looking for an empty shelter. It was inevitable that an ownerless city would devolve into a slum. Kesha Arma became another abyss within the cosmos. The ones who took control of this fallen king of wealth were the Marcio cartel. They're one of the top 5 most powerful cartels in the entire Spacedoc. Typically, Spacedoc cartels avoid settling on planets or space cities. They have many enemies, and they never know when a punitive force might show up. Instead, they prefer to invest in heavily armed ships where their members can live. However, the leaders of the Marcio cartel have always taken a different approach. They earned credits by brokering the crimes of other pirates. They set up black markets for cartels that mainly engaged in smuggling or connected those involved in human trafficking with the upper echelons of megacorp, and so on. Just as Kesha Arma once profited by acting as an intermediary between the mining planet and the mining ships, The Marcio cartel profited by acting as a middleman for pirates and criminals. Ironically, this business model was what allowed Kesha Arma and the Marcio cartel to survive. Even Megacorp and the Star Union, who loathed Spaceadoke, were their clients. A lawless zone sanctioned by the universe's major powers, that was the Kesha Arma of today. And today, as always, crime was rampant within the pirates' fortress. Shit. Go for the head. The head, damn it. You're the only one I trust. I bet all my credits on you. Arg. You bitch. Why are you cutting off his arm? What was once known as the Fifth Armory, a place that had once been filled with all kinds of weapons, was now packed with a frenzied crowd. Humans, cyborgs, wolves, and coldbloods, beings from different cultures and backgrounds, all shouted at a single sight. Within the iron cage, two naked men were fighting. Though their appearances, skin colors, and the weapons in their hands differed, they shared two things in common. Both wore heavy restraints around their necks, and both were covered in blood from head to toe. This was a gladiator arena run by pirates, one of the many commonplace abysses in the city. Yeah. Just a bit more. You bastard, you can do it. What's wrong with that guy? Arg. Damn it. Whoa. He won. He won. Yeah. My credits. No. The brutal fight ended when the man wielding an axe beheaded the one armed with a spear. The emotions of life and death weren't confined to the cage. The crowd around the arena was equally caught up in feelings of exhilaration and despair. Gitk, a cyborg who had recently joined the Marcio cartel, was among those cheering. Aha, how much is this? He rarely bet against the odds, and now, he hit the jackpot. Gitk plugged his terminal into the accounting machine set up in the arena. Seeing 2 extra zeros instantly added to his credits, he couldn't help but smirk. Wow, underdog bet, hell yeah. Lucky bastard, I'm so damn jealous. The looks directed at him were far from friendly, but no one dared to approach recklessly. Everyone knew he was a member of the Marcio cartel. Enjoying the mix of envy and resentment aimed his way, he left the arena. The cyborg, whose body was half machine, was greeted by an intensely blinding light. It was an artificial symphony of neon signs from the entertainment shops. Red, blue, yellow, green, all sorts of lights filled the street, making it nearly impossible to discern what anyone passing by was wearing. It wasn't just the advertisements that were a chaotic jumble. The buildings were as well. Some, like the arena that was once an armory, bore deep influences of cult architecture, while others were crudely built structures thrown together by outsiders. In front of the dilapidated shops that seemed on the verge of collapse at any moment, pirates, vagrants, slaves, mercenaries, and all manner of characters loitered around. In this slum-like place where nothing felt unified, if one wished to feel a fragment of the past, they only needed to look up. Above their heads, another ground gazed down upon them. Kesha Arma, a space fortress orbiting a planet, moved in sync with the celestial body. Through its transparent outer walls, the abandoned planet looked down upon the residents of the fortress. No matter where you were in Kesha Arma, you could always catch a glimpse of that desolate planet's landscape. Despite being in the presence of the pinnacle of cult civilization, Git felt nothing. He had seen it for too long, and besides, the credits displayed on his terminal mattered more to him. Guess I'll grab a drink. He had enjoyed his entertainment, and now it was time to fuel up. He headed to a bar he frequented. As he entered, others, who were similarly passing time while drinking synthetic alcohol, greeted him. A round of synth booze for this table. Git casually joined them at their table, prompting some of the pirates to give him surprised looks. Oh, what's up, Tin Can? That bastard must have won some money. You usually lose, but did you hit a jackpot bet? Damn it, I was about to say that. With a few rounds passed between them, the pirates, including Git, were quickly getting drunk. Tin Can, gotta ask you something. They say in the Star Union, even jerking off by yourself isn't allowed, is that true? Yeah. Because of the population control or reproduction policies, it's illegal. They conduct annual memory inspections, and if you're caught. Gik spread his index and middle fingers into a scissor shape, causing the other pirates to recoil in horror. Damn, that's the scariest story I've heard yet. You can't have sex freely, and you can't even jerk off. The fact you lived in such a place for decades is terrifying, man. Buck. Speaking of scary stuff, you guys hear the latest rumors about the Satua cartel. The Satua. Those psychos. What about them? A friend of mine knows some of the Satua guys, and he said he lost contact with them completely 2 months ago. Ugh, shit. I'm more shocked that you know those Satua bastards. Get the hell away from me. The other pirates jeered at the fox-like wolf pirate who claimed to know the Satua cartel. Then, a scarred human pirate chimed in. I heard something similar. What? The Satua cartel's slave market vanished without a trace. I heard it wiped out their entire operation. Gik was taken aback by the human pirate's words. The Satua cartel had a notorious reputation. Their primary trade involved capturing primitives from uncharted planets and selling them into slavery. They were big enough to set up massive slave markets on unclaimed planets, right alongside the Marcio cartel. And the scale of their operations was said to be nearly as large as this space fortress. I don't care what happened to those Satua bastards, but things have been getting really weird lately. Yeah, with the fall of the teen space city, we've lost a major hangout. Idiot, that place went down ages ago. Get over it. I hear outspacers have been getting rowdy again lately. Thanks to them, I've been raking in cash, though. There are tons of people hiring mercenaries now. You're talking shit because you've never fought an outspacer, huh? Are outspacers tasty? Bet your mom tastes better. PFFT. Is the whole universe really going to shit? The scarred pirate's low mutter shifted the mood at the table. As pirates who sailed across dozens, even hundreds of star systems daily, they were often the first to notice changes in the universe. And the scarred pirate was right. The universe was growing more chaotic than it had ever been before. Gik frowned at the mood-killing atmosphere. On a day as lucky as today, the last thing he wanted to hear was such ominous talk. However, his comrades seemed quite entertained by the sudden ghost stories, eagerly starting to share tales they knew. Do you guys know why the Devura cartel fell apart? Turns out, they got caught by a ghost ship. Now, I heard from the humanity guys that rumors about a black ghost ship that devoured spacecraft, secret stories about the downfall of space cities, and tales of demons that wore human skin and imitated people, it all seemed absurd. The more Gik listened to the pirates, the more he was dumbfounded. It seemed they had forgotten where they were. This was a fortress built in the heart of space, a shrine to technology and science, and yet here they were spouting superstitions and mysterious monsters. Half the pirates visiting this fortress were in the business of capturing and selling those so-called mysterious monsters. Gik couldn't understand what part of their stories was supposed to be enjoyable. I'm heading out. He paid his tab to the android and left the bar. Monsters, my ass. In this era of space exploration, monsters weren't mysterious creatures or ghost ships that swallowed starships. As someone who had once been human, then a Star Union cyborg, and now a pirate, he knew what true monsters were. Might as well get some sleep. In a few hours, he'd have to go back to work. And so, the lone cyborg disappeared into the crowd on the street. While Gik was wasting his life away at the bar, new visitors were arriving at the fortress's military port. True to a city dominated by a chaotic space adoke, the visitors were equally varied. Pirate assault ships bearing cartel emblems, sleek and efficient megacorp warships, rugged Star Union freighters, and various other civilian vessels, an array of ships easily entered and exited the city. There was no need for intense inspections since everyone's purpose in visiting the pirate fortress was obvious. After all, it was laughable for a bunch of criminals to prevent others from committing crimes. Hundreds of ships came and went from the military port. Among them, one stood out. Hey, that ship looks like it belongs to those Satua bastards. Weren't they laying low? What are they doing here? The assault ship from the Satua cartel was notorious for its long, narrow hull and wide rear. It was an unusual design, modified from a decommissioned megacorp vessel, making it a rare sight. The anchor-shaped Satua assault ship had just docked at the port. A few pirates disembarked and started talking to the port's guards. Pirates watching from a distance scratched their heads in confusion. What the hell? There's a wolf with the Satua pirates. The Satua cartel was known for its all-human membership. They considered other sentient beings as potential kidnapping targets, making them outcasts even among the various races inhabiting the space docks. Yet here was a white-feathered, amber-eyed wolf standing among the crew. And not just standing, he appeared to be giving orders to the Satua members. This went against everything the pirates thought they knew. The guards also seemed to find the assault ship suspicious. What should have been a cursory check turned into a full-on search of the ship's interior. Watching the guards follow the wolf into the assault ship, The pirates assumed this fake Satua vessel would soon be expelled from the fortress. But the results of the search were entirely unexpected. The guards emerged from the ship and took no action against the crew. In fact, it looked as if they had accepted bribes. They treated the wolf with the same respect they would show to a cartel boss. The guards even went as far as to help the Satua crew. It wasn't until 2 containers were unloaded from the ship onto the dock that the guards returned to their duties. What the hell is going on? What's on that ship that's making them act like that? The pirates had never seen the guards behave this way. Their gazes locked onto the assault ship. Most were simply curious, but a few had something else in mind. They were already thinking about finding out exactly what was on that ship. And if it turned out to be something valuable, they were prepared to take it for themselves. Chapter 257. After the wolf who had been commanding the Satua members left the port, 5 pirates approached the ship. Although they pretended to be looking elsewhere, their eyes kept glancing at the vessel. Am I right or what? It's definitely strange that there's not a single guard watching the ship. While the ruling Marcio cartel would never tolerate chaos within its territory, they didn't crack down on every minor crime. The guards at the port conducted only the most basic checks, not caring about each ship's security. In other words, every ship had to take care of its own defenses. Looking around, pirates or mercenaries could be seen guarding their ships. But there was no such thing around the Satua cartel's assault ship. There was no movement outside or inside the vessel. It was as if the ship was completely deserted. Looks like we could go in. The wide open door beckoned the pirates, urging them to come in without worry. After ensuring no one was watching, the 5 pirates climbed the steps leading to the entrance of the ship. This is going smoothly. We could just take this ship and leave, don't you think? Don't get carried away, you idiot. How the hell would you even pilot such a huge piece of crap? As they exchanged banter, the pirates went silent the moment they stepped inside. Only minimal lighting illuminated the corridor. As expected, there was no one inside, but none of the 5 expressed any joy. There was something unnervingly unsettling about the dim-lit hallway. Goddamn, this place is creepy. Are they nuts? They came here in this thing. If it had just been dark, none of them would have been afraid. They were, after all, space dock regulars who roamed the infinite darkness. But this ship was different. There was an inexplicable sense of dread lurking within. Let's check things out quickly and get out. The pirate with dyed green hair suggested, and the others nodded without a word. They all felt the ominous air but couldn't bring themselves to leave empty-handed. They started moving down the shadowy corridor. The temperature inside wasn't particularly low. The life support systems were still running. Yet, the pirates felt an inexplicable chill, as if cold air seeped into their very bones with every breath. The smell was another strange factor. It wasn't the unwashed stench of pirates or the odor of smuggled animals. There was an odd, unsettling scent pervading the entire ship. It was the kind of smell that should have hit them the moment they set foot on the metal steps. Yet, none of them had covered their noses before crossing the doorway. It felt as though the ship had been waiting for them to board. They didn't speak of it, but all shared the same thought. Despite their instinctive fear, nothing actively threatened them. As they moved forward unhindered, they finally came upon a large iron door. This should be the cargo hold, right? Let's see what's in there. A pirate with a cybernetic eye pulled out a terminal. Connecting it to the door's cables, he quickly hacked through the lock. The heavy iron door creaked open, revealing a pitch-black cargo hold. Turn on the lights. Not sure we can do that without messing with the ship's computer. Damn it, really? Cursing, the pirates drew their laser pistols, each equipped with a small flashlight on the end. Damn, it's dark in here. Maybe it's the paint. That's probably where that smell is coming from. Quiet, both of you. Let's split up and search. Agreed. If the flickering hallway lights had been unsettling, this room was much darker and far more disturbing. Staying here any longer would surely drive them mad. They spread out to search for valuables as quickly as possible. It felt fine when I first came in. The green-haired pirate, relying on the light from his gun, regretted his decision as he moved between the iron cages. It wasn't as if they were raiding a rich ship, and this vessel mainly dealt in slaves. Why had he thought it was worth checking out? In hindsight, it was suspicious that the Satua bastards didn't leave any guards behind. Those guys had visited this place more than once. Come on, there's got to be something. Oh. He gasped. His light had fallen on something inside one of the iron cages. A statue. At first, he thought it was a person and was startled, but upon closer inspection, he realized it wasn't. Inside the cell was a statue, a human figure sculpted from a translucent, crystalline mineral. Damn, thought it was a person. The green-haired pirate stepped into the cell and touched the statue. It felt cold and solid, just like any inorganic mineral. It's incredibly well made. The craftsmanship was so exquisite that the statue almost seemed alive. Especially the expression, it had its eyes and mouth wide open, as if it had witnessed something terrifying, making it look full of life. It was as if a living person had been instantly turned into a statue. This could be worth a fortune. Hey. Come over here, you guys. He wasn't the only one who had caught the scent of credits. He stepped out of the cell and ran to where his comrades were. And thus, he failed to notice that the eyes of the statue were now fixed on his back. We could make a tidy profit even if we just take a few of these. Don't be greedy. If we take too many, they might notice. Let's just grab 3 for now. Inside the scattered iron cages were statues that resembled humans. There had to be at least 100 of them. Their efforts in wandering through this creepy place had finally paid off. The 5 pirates stood in front of the statues, clearly satisfied. The idiots who couldn't even maintain basic security wouldn't notice if a few statues disappeared. Confident in this, the pirates began moving the statues. We lift on 3. 1, 2, 3. Ugh, damn, this is heavy. Come on, lift it properly. Whoa, whoa. The statues were extremely heavy. Even with 4 adult men, moving them was a struggle. In the end, one pirate slipped, and the statue toppled over onto the floor. You stupid bastard. Sorry. Shut up, all of you. If it gets damaged, the value will drop. The pirate with the cybernetic eye checked the fallen statue for any damage. Fortunately, there were no cracks. As he sighed in relief and looked at the statue, he suddenly had a strange feeling. The human statue appeared as if it would scream at any moment, its expression dynamic and full of life. And that face, it seemed oddly familiar. Does anyone here have contact with the Poncha crew? Poncha. Weren't they wiped out by that cult? As the green-haired pirate mentioned, it had been about a month since all contact with the Poncha cartel had been lost. The pirate with the cybernetic eye knew that, too. But he asked because the fallen statue's appearance bore a striking resemblance to someone from the Poncha cartel. It's definitely that guy from Poncha. Here, on a ship that had lost contact 2 months ago, they found a statue identical to a member of the Poncha cartel who had supposedly been wiped out just a month ago. What could that mean? What the hell is going on? Something had gone terribly wrong. His instincts screamed that they needed to leave immediately. At that moment, the green-haired pirate called out to him. Hey. What? These statues. Were they always looking this way? All the pirates looked up at once. The light from 4 flashlights illuminated the iron cages scattered throughout the cargo hold. The statues stood just as they had earlier, frozen in place. Except for one difference, their eyes. Every single statue was now staring directly at them. Holy shit. Don't shoot, you idiot. We need to get out of here now. This place is dangerous. Wait. If we leave like this, we're not taking anything. Damn it. Grab it quick. Hey, where's the other guy? Come to think of it, there were 5 when they entered, but now there were only 4. Huh? When did he disappear? Who cares about that right now? Screw the credits, let's just run for it. He'll make it out on his own. Instead of searching for their missing comrade, they sprinted toward the door that led out of the cargo hold. The cargo hold wasn't particularly large. It shouldn't have been difficult to escape outside. It didn't take long for him to realize that assumption was wrong. It just keeps going. He had been running long enough to be out of breath, yet there was still no door in sight. The pirate with the cybernetic eye switched his lens to night vision mode, but still, no door appeared. The others. Where did they all go? His comrades, who had been running alongside him just moments ago, had vanished. Panicking, he looked around. Instead of his companions, he found himself surrounded by the statues, all staring at him with an eerie, unyielding gaze. His skin crawled under those chilling eyes. He tightened his grip around his handgun, though he wasn't sure how much it would help. But without it, he felt like he might just die from sheer terror. Gulp. Swallowing hard, he began to cautiously walk between the iron cages. With each step he took, the eyes beyond the bars followed him. He had spent his life bathed in the hatred of those he had pillaged. But the eyes staring at him now filled him with a fear he had never felt before. As he trembled and walked forward, a figure suddenly emerged before him. It was the green-haired pirate who had disappeared earlier during their attempted escape. He nearly shot his comrade in his panic and yelled in frustration. "Damn it, I almost shot you." The green-haired pirate stumbled toward him without a word. As he got closer, the pirate with the cybernetic eye felt his blood freeze. The translucent crystal material he'd seen on the statues was now spreading over the green-haired pirate's neck and mouth. It wasn't that the pirate wasn't responding on purpose, he simply couldn't speak anymore. The green-haired pirate grabbed the other's collar, his eyes desperately pleading for help as his body continued to harden. "Ah!" The pirate with the cybernetic eye shoved his comrade away and stepped back. Now he understood what these statues were made of. This ship was cursed. He didn't know what kind of ritual the Sadia crew had performed, but it was clear this vessel had returned from a place darker than hell itself. As he came to that realization, the eyes of all the statues surrounding him shifted upward. Even the fallen comrade's gaze turned to look above his head. The pirate with the cybernetic eye sensed something hovering above him. He was too terrified to look up, but his curiosity refused to obey his fear. Slowly, he raised his head. There, something from hell was staring down at him. "You have a twisted hobby." Mother of the Sky sighed as she observed the 5 newly added pirate figurines. "Do I? I hadn't really done much to those who had boarded the ship. I ended things quickly, only using 2 of my recently acquired unique traits. Herald of Chaos, reality is dictated by perception. Spread psychic power to distort the senses of all sentient beings within a 500-meter radius. Randomly implant a madness bomb in one of the affected beings. Madness bomb disrupts the target's senses and mind, turning them into a lunatic. When they die, the madness bomb effect transfers to the nearest sentient being. Note, effect is reduced on creatures with psychic resistance. Agility significantly decreases while using this trait. P.S. Don't trust reality too much. Medusa engine injects silicon-based microorganisms into the target, altering their genetic makeup. The altered being crystallizes in stages over time. Note, this can only be used upon direct contact with the target. One of these is a transcendent system trait, while the other falls under the environmental adaptation category. There's another unique trait I've developed recently, but it's not something suitable for this situation. Obtaining the Medusa engine was a real hassle. I had to face off against a black Galagon, one almost as strong as Odd Grad. The fight took 2 whole weeks. But the reward was well worth it. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, you know they'll be useful. Yeah, I suppose you're right. I wrapped one of the statues with an invasive tendril. This one should do. It was one of the pirates who had intruded into the cargo hold while I was resting. After the others had fled, I stayed behind, using Herald of Chaos to distort their senses, ensuring they couldn't escape. The pirates, whose cognitive abilities had completely deteriorated, were either running in circles on the spot or wandering aimlessly along the walls of the cargo hold. They probably thought they were escaping effectively, but that wasn't the case at all. Once they're inside, they're trapped in the palm of my hand. Clinging to the ceiling, I used the tendrils equipped with the Medusa engine to turn the maddened pirates into quartz statues one by one. The Medusa engine worked by implanting silicon-based microorganisms into the target's body. These microorganisms would rapidly transform whatever they infected into a substance resembling crystal. In other words, as the name implies, it turns the target into a mineral lump. The only way to prevent this was to remove the microorganisms before they could spread. If they couldn't stop it, they'd be trapped forever in a prison of flesh, just like the statues in this cargo hold. This wasn't a trait that could be obtained from anything less than an apex predator stronger than even a black Galagon. It pairs well with my other traits. The opponents crystallized by the Medusa engine became quite useful in various ways. For example, they could serve as raw materials for the mimicry organ. I opened my mouth wide and bit into the crystallized pirate. The hard crystal shattered, and a sweet, juicy flavor spread through my mouth, much like biting into a candy with liquid inside. The body of the pirate, who once had green hair, slid down my throat, past my digestive tract, and began to nourish me. During this process, my dormant mimicry organ awoke and absorbed his genetic information. After dropping from the ceiling, I landed on the floor without making a sound and walked toward the pirate who had wet himself in terror. Who are you? The pirate with the cybernetic eye was trembling with fear and confusion. Right now, he would be seeing me as his green-haired comrade. His mind might recognize that I wasn't truly his companion, but his body would reject that interpretation. Thanks to the form dominator trait I acquired a few months ago, the efficiency of my mimicry organ had improved significantly. Previously, I had to rely on pheromones to confuse the target's senses. But now, the psychic power seeping from my pores cloaked my body in a false image, using telekinetic energy as a sort of living optic camouflage. It was as if I wore a psychic-powered optical device, making me nearly undetectable to cameras. Even if photographed, I'd only appear as a distorted shape, much like a ghostly image, but that's far better than being captured as a monstrous figure. Ever since I left the Dragon's Nest, I had traveled across multiple star systems, devouring countless sentient beings. For the more important individuals, I preserved their genetic data using the parasite worm organ within my body, while those of lesser value I turned into statues using the Medusa engine, just like now. These were all meant to be tools for future invasions of other planets or ships. What about the others? They're in the container. Number 26 is staying still, but Adha seems hungry. I should bring her something to eat. Using my wing arms, I lifted the pirate with the cybernetic eye. Trembling, he started begging. Please, spare me. Please, spare me. Please, I beg you. I had initially planned to offer him to Adha as a snack, but a better idea suddenly struck me. I asked Mother of the Sky in a gentle tone. We're visiting this place in our reality for the first time, right? Yeah. Originally, this was a cult's space fortress. I'm not sure why it's changed like this. In that case, we'll need a guide. What? His eyes widened at my words. Though I had used parasites to dominate the guards, I still had a few left. The illusion covering my body wavered slightly, and a black, eel-like creature crawled out from my combat arm. The pirate's face turned ashen at the sight of the wriggling parasite slithering toward him. Wait. Hold on. Why, The parasite coiled around his face, and then, with a swift movement, burrowed into his throat. As it wriggled through his throat and toward his brain, the pirate's eyes and nose began to bleed. A moment later, with a blissful smile, the pirate bowed his head to me. I serve my new master, Master Amorph. I serve Amorph. Long live Amorph. Wow. Now that I had moved to a different fishing spot, it was time to change the bait as well. Adhay's snack would be replaced with the fish we caught using this new lure. Chapter 258. In recent days, Guy Deco had been in a good mood. This was because the unexpected winnings from an underdog bet at the human fighting arena were now securely stored in his terminal. Perhaps it was thanks to the sense of hope that he hadn't felt in a long time, but even on his way to work, he didn't feel burdened. To be precise, he was on his way to work in an environment where it was impossible to feel burdened. The next landing spot is Military Port. An announcement echoed through the hover bus that was carrying him. Normally, he would have taken the underground military train to work, mingling with the teeming masses and having his mood ruined. Of course, the hover bus wasn't completely free of people either, but the smell was different. Here, the stench of alcohol, sweat, and vomit that would often blend together wasn't present. Instead, the scent of expensive air fresheners installed in the vehicle and the perfumes of wealthy passengers filled the air. Though both the train and the bus were crowded, the difference in smell inevitably changed the mood. Considering Guy Deco's usual earnings, taking a hover bus was quite an extravagance, but he didn't care. He thought it was worth spending credits on such things occasionally. With that in mind, he stared out the window, standing among the other passengers. The hover bus had just left the chaotic city district and was nearing the military port. As it landed in front of the port, people spilled out in droves. The main customers of the hover bus were outsiders visiting the fortress. After finishing their business, they would take the ships docked at the port to leave. With people exiting, there was now a bit more room. Guy Deco stretched his stiffened body lightly. Just before the door closed, he caught sight of someone he knew outside. It was a security officer from the port, someone he had shared a drink with before. The officer was smiling broadly, looking strangely delighted. Though he appeared to be smiling, Guy Deco sensed something odd about him. It was because of his eyes. The security officer's pupils were unwavering, fixed in place as he smiled only with his mouth while staring directly at the bus. Seeing him like that, Guy Deco was reminded of a screamer he once saw during his time in the Star Union, those unfortunate beings, controlled by machines, not even allowed to breathe on their own. As the unpleasant memory resurfaced, Gaidiko looked away from the security officer. But even then, he saw others with similar expressions. Among the bustling crowds at the port, there were people standing still with eerie faces. Some were vagrants, others were cartel pirates. Despite having nothing in common, they all stood in the same posture. They must have taken a hell of a lot of drugs this morning. Kesha Arma was a space fortress sustained by crime. It wasn't unusual to see people high on drugs just about anywhere. Everyone knew this, which is why they ignored those strange individuals. Lucky bastards. Gaidiko lost interest in the junkies. The door closed and the bus took off again. The next stop was his workplace, the second command center, where he worked as a security guard. Even after the bus carrying Gaidiko departed, the junkies remained in place. A moment later, they turned and started moving somewhere. They were heading back to the one who had seized control of their minds. It had been 3 days since I arrived at Kesha Arma, the abandoned cult fortress. So far, I had spent my time gathering information, trying to understand how much this place had changed from what I remembered. The minerals have run dry, huh? According to the words of the prey I'd recently caught, the fortress had been abandoned because the planet it was supposed to protect had exhausted its mineral resources. Well, minerals might be unlimited in the game, but not in reality. Whether resources or living beings, it takes time for them to replenish. In any case, with resources depleted and the star system no longer holding any military significance, there was no reason for the Empire to maintain an expensive orbital habitat. Officially, it's still an Imperial property. It seems that the cartel from the space dock had obtained management rights through lobbying. It's not all that surprising. After all, Muriel, the first player I devoured, also infiltrated the sacred planet with Jason's backing. I should get more details from the next target. My underlings had just located members of the Marcio cartel, the group that controls this fortress. Not just any low-level member, but someone working in the important second command center of this city. I hope he's a smart one. There were 2 reasons why my followers and I came here. The first was due to rumors that a massive auction would be taking place in the pirate fortress. A lot had happened since I left the dragon's nest. While hunting the rare apex creature known as the Gorgon Swarm, our means of transportation, a Screamer support ship, had been severely damaged. As a result, it became difficult to travel alongside the Galagon pack. Fortunately, there was a suitable place nearby to serve as a new nest. In the star system where the Gorgon Swarm was found, there was a planet where the Galagons could settle. The Galagon pack had established a new nest there. The unfortunate part was that, having lost my ship, I'd have to part ways with the Galagon pack for a while. Adha stepped down temporarily from her position as the leader of her Galagon pack to follow me. In her place, Ort has taken over as the acting leader. Hoping that we might meet again when the time is right, we left. After leaving the star system in search of a new goal, we switched to a new ship. During that process, we were fortunate to obtain information about a slave market. I made quite a mess there. On the planet where the slave market was established, I had the chance to consume various creatures. Additionally, I managed to extract crucial information from smugglers, who kept spilling secrets one after another. The information was that a large-scale auction for smuggled animals and slaves would take place at Kesha Arma. Only 2 more unique traits, and I'll be in my adult form. After experiencing numerous events, I've nearly completed the conditions for evolving into an adult form. I activated the semi-transparent text box. Subadult minus adult evolution conditions. Apex 30/30ths achieved. Unique traits owned 8/10ths not achieved. Types owned 6/6ths achieved. The 8 unique traits I possess are as follows: 6 were created using the Transcendence system, and 2 were obtained by hunting apex creatures. To complete my evolution, I need to either devour more rare creatures or gather a variety of traits and then use the Transcendence system. That's why I'm targeting the auction. The chances of a creature with a unique trait being available at the auction are close to 0. Hence, my plan focuses on the latter method, obtaining 2 more unique traits using the Transcendence system to complete my evolution. The traits I currently possess are Perfect Organism, Horizon of Nightmare, Organic Evolution, Great Infector, Harbinger of Chaos, and another unique trait I haven't used here yet. Additionally, I have Heart of the Dragon, obtained from the Black Galagon, and the Medusa Organ, obtained from hunting the Gorgon Swarm. Excluding the unique traits gained from hunting apex creatures, 6 of my traits are classified as cosmic monster types. Once I acquire 2 more, it will make a total of 8, which will unlock the cosmic monster type's second tier reward. This way, I can evolve and obtain the second tier reward simultaneously. This is the main reason I've come here, but there's another reason related to the Mother of the Sky. Currently, the Mother of the Sky is in a similar state to mine. She's one step away from advancing in her deification process. The only offering left is the corrupted wolf's heart. Since we left the dragon's nest, we have finished refining the star pearl or at a pirate's slave market. Now, the only thing she has to do is consume the wolf's heart. Although this might seem like an easy goal, it's not that simple. It requires extracting the heart of a wolf player capable of transformation. If this were just a game, it'd be easy. But here, unlike in the game, finding a wolf as powerful as the Mother of the Sky was challenging. Most wolves were unaware of the concept of deification. Had we not heard about a transformable wolf on a space fortress from the slave market, we would have spent much longer searching. The underboss of the Marcio cartel, which runs the auction, is said to be a wolf. If we capture one of the organization's members, we might get the information needed to lure out the underboss. That's the main reason we're here. This is the goal the Mother of the Sky and I set together, and the others didn't have any objections. They're such good companions. They may be terrifying when facing enemies, but to me, they're simply endearing. My family is currently concealed in a container at the military port. It's a container belonging to the previous owners of this ship, designed to shield various types of energy. While inside, not a single trace of the psychic power they emit can escape. This place was originally a space fortress managed by a cult fleet. Though we arrived knowing it had turned into a pirate base, I hid them in the container just in case the military might still be around. Now that it's confirmed to be under the jurisdiction of Space Dock, there's no need for further caution. When it's time to invade the fortress, I plan to unleash them. Not just yet, though. The fruit isn't ripe. Now is the time to lay the groundwork. Once all preparations are complete, I intend to go to war with them by my side. I rose from where I'd been lying in the cargo hold. When I left the dragon's nest, my body took on a spider-like form. It was 25 meters in length, with a tail and wings resembling that of a spider. Since then, I've acquired numerous traits, but my appearance hasn't changed significantly. The most notable differences are the larger head carapace due to the harbinger of chaos and the longer monstrous tentacles. Come here. Upon hearing my words, 20 subordinates approached me. They, governed by parasites, were delighted to obey my orders. It was something that would be impossible in a game, but the enhancement effects of 2 specific traits made it achievable. The Great Infector, which grants enhancement effects to 3 traits each from the infection and nest types, made this possible. With this trait, the parasitic colony gained the ability to produce 20 parasites. This meant that the number of beings I could control increased to 20. And that wasn't all. One of the marks of the strong traits, Form Dominator, also enhanced the parasitic colony. It wasn't just an increase in numbers, the quality of the parasites themselves improved. These parasites, now grown to the size of an eel, burrow into their victims' brains and replace that area entirely. Once infected, the victim's entire brain activity falls under the parasite's influence. They don't just serve me, they view me as an essential part of their existence, as if I were a part of their very body. It's not forced obedience, they follow me with genuine devotion. The downside is when it's time to retrieve the parasites. I once ran an experiment to see what would happen. Even after the parasite was removed, the host didn't die immediately. They became a complete vegetable since part of their brain was missing. In other words, unlike before, once a parasite takes root, that person is finished. It's fortunate I removed it from the Mother of the Sky beforehand. When she saw an eel-like parasite, covered in bits of brain matter, emerging from a victim's mouth, she avoided me for quite some time. Enough distractions. I need to focus. Facing the 20 individuals before me, I activated the Harbinger of Chaos. From my back, head, carapace, and neck, monstrous tentacles emerged. The tentacles wriggled as if an octopus was swimming through water. Psychic power, capable of inflicting devastating effects on living beings' bodies and minds, traveled along the tentacles and spread through the air. Anyone sensitive to energy would be able to see it, fine threads of psychic power wafting through the air like smoke rising from an incense burner. As soon as the Harbinger of Chaos was activated, the 20 people before me reacted instantly. Slurp, hee-hee, slurp, slurp, hee-hee. Huff, 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 huff. Aida. FGUNVEL.com. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sore. A security guard, perhaps reliving childhood memories, sucked on his fingers. A pirate with a prosthetic eye, seemingly encountering his past victims, kept apologizing. One man, overwhelmed with intense pleasure, drooled while thrusting his hips wildly into the air. Another gasped, frantically licking the floor. These slaves of sensation floundered in the psychic power that twisted and distorted their perceptions. The Harbinger of Chaos is a unique trait I acquired when I raided a Screamer supply ship and obtained material information. As it contains numerous traits related to psychic abilities, it's specialized in mental manipulation and crowd control. The range is usually much broader. It can influence all sentient beings within a 500-meter radius, but I've restricted the range for now. I need to focus solely on these 20 individuals in this room. As their behavior grew more erratic and animalistic, I noticed a faint purple glow appearing over some of their heads. Got it. That glow was a madness bomb, a sort of additional effect triggered when using the Harbinger of Chaos. Having confirmed this, I immediately deactivated the Harbinger of Chaos. The subordinates, now returned to reality, collapsed to the ground, utterly exhausted. Perhaps this is how I'll kick things off. If the madness bomb detonates, it's bound to create quite the commotion. I commanded those with the purple glow surrounding them. Find places where crowds gather. Chapter 259. Hey, did you hear about it? There was a huge commotion in the city district an hour ago. A commotion. Some lunatic went after the Marcio cartel and ended up dead. Damn, that's insane. In the space fortress of Kesha Arma, the Marcio cartel's influence was far beyond that of mere proprietors. Controlling the reactor, they essentially hold the life and death of everyone on this fortress in their hands. It's said that in the past, they once gathered rebels into a single district and cut off their oxygen supply. That's why the name Marcio is never taken lightly here. The idea that someone would be bold enough to challenge them, well, it's the kind of incident that would pique the interest of a nosy companion. So, who on our side got hit? Jonas. The crazy bastard bit his neck, and he had to be taken to the hospital. That powered armor fanatic got attacked. How does an ordinary person even manage to bite someone wearing powered armor? Those who were with him said he seemed like a druggie. Might have been on pshnium or something, apparently his physical abilities were off the charts. A druggie, huh? That word made Gaidiku think about something from earlier in the morning. The naval port guard, grinning bizarrely while staring at a hover bus. There wasn't just one person standing like that either. Well, the higher-ups will handle it. The Marcio cartel had an important business coming up soon. In just a few days, there'd be an auction for smuggled animals and slaves. It's why different species ships were flocking from all over the galaxy. In such a situation, there's no way the cartel would allow a bunch of drug addicts to run rampant. They'll probably crack down hard on them. It's ironic to think about criminals cracking down on drug addicts, but it wasn't Gaidiku's concern. His role in the organization was far more important than simply busting a druggie's head. Looking at all this food makes me hungry. Freddy, you idiot, you want to get jettisoned into space like your predecessors. I was just saying, man. No need to be so prickly. Before Gaidiku and his companion Freddy was a feast so lavish, it's something one might only see once in a lifetime. The place they were at was once called the Second Headquarters. Now, it functioned as a hotel accommodating the Marcio cartel's most important clients. Their job was to ensure that this food reached the VIPs staying upstairs without a hitch. For that purpose, they were armed to an unusually high degree for low-ranking members, equipped with brand-new medium-class powered armor and ghost rifles. In terms of equipment, they were on par with a megacorp's armored police force. Preparations complete. Proceeding with delivery. An android, now loaded with all the food on a cart, began to move. As they boarded the elevator with the android, the two men fell silent. The elevator quickly ascended and came to a stop on the 100th floor. As the doors opened, they were greeted by a corridor as opulently decorated as the food the android carried. They followed it out of the elevator. The hallway was lined with pirates clad in high-grade powered armor and fully armed androids. Feeling their gaze, Gaidiku swallowed hard. The guest staying on the 100th floor was of utmost importance. The cartel boss himself had given strict orders to treat this person with the same respect he would command. Pass. After passing through the strict security and entering the room, they were greeted by the sound of laughter. Even though it was a voice he only heard a few times a year, there was no mistaking its owner. The master of Kesha Arma and the leader of the Marcio cartel. One of the elders who wielded the most power at Spaceadoke, Montana Marcio. As they entered the enormous dining room with the android, they saw a giant with brown skin and a woman with antler-like horns. Ahaha, cultists are truly fascinating. Fascinating, you say? That's an intriguing perspective. The colossal man, who would fill a sofa large enough to seat 3 grown men with room to spare, was none other than the ruler of the space fortress. On the opposite side, despite her words, the cult woman nodded with a calm expression. She was the VIP that Montana Marcio had invited. This woman was an extraordinarily important figure who had been residing on this vast 100th floor for nearly half a year. Important enough that Montana Marcio himself had to flatter her like this. Ah! The meal has arrived just in time. Lady Cynthia. Thank you for your consideration, Montana. Consideration. No, this is hardly enough when I think of the grace you and he have shown us. At his gesture, the android began setting up the meal. From this point on, their job was done. Guy Deco and Freddy bowed politely and retreated. Wow, did you see that cultist? You know who she is. I've never seen the boss act like that, Freddy muttered as soon as they got back into the elevator. Guy Deco responded nonchalantly. She's obviously important, or she wouldn't be staying here for half a year. True. No one's ever stayed here for more than a month. Doesn't matter to us, so don't bother. That was the evening meal they'd just delivered, so their duties were done for the day. Other members would handle the rest of the hospitality. Guy Deco and Freddy returned their equipment and exited the second headquarters building. Hey, I'll cover everything today. Let's live like kings for a night. You're spending like crazy after just one ride on the hover bus. Both would have to report back to the headquarters again tomorrow. But true to their pirate nature, neither cared. Whether they had credits or not, they had always lived without a plan, and they'd continue doing so. Ugh. Drunk out of his mind, Guy Deco stumbled out of the fancy bar. Freddy had long disappeared with a wolf courtesan. He considered indulging in similar pleasures himself, but his dwindling credits held him back. Between riding buses the past few days and partying, his terminal was flashing warnings about his finances. I'll just earn more later. The first windfall is always the hardest. Now that he'd hit it big once, the next one would come even quicker, or so he optimistically thought as he walked down the street. Unlike the usual bar near the arena, this area was packed with upscale entertainment facilities, making it quieter than the usual nightlife districts. Once the auction started, though, it would be as busy as any other zone. Should I walk? Low on credits, Guy Deco decided against using the bus and instead headed toward the capsule housing district on foot. Despite the late hour, there were still quite a few people on the streets. People here typically had 2 goals: to indulge in women like Freddy or to drink heavily like Guy Deco. But for some reason, the people on the street weren't entering any of the establishments. They just stood around as if waiting for something. What's going on? Even in his drunken haze, Guy Deco found it odd but chose to ignore it. He didn't have the luxury to worry about the actions of those wealthier than himself. After about 30 minutes of walking, he found himself in a street full of old, dilapidated buildings, marking the end of the nightlife district. This area was where the fortress's shipyards and factories were located. In the days when the cult managed it, the lights never went out here, but that was no longer the case. It only saw brief activity during auctions and remained a deserted, lifeless zone at all other times. Despite the lack of electricity, it wasn't completely dark, thanks to the light shining down from the planet above. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have felt afraid, but tonight, something felt different. What the hell is this? The street he walked every night on his way home looked more decrepit than usual, and there was an eerie sense that something lurked in the abandoned buildings. Even in his drunken state, he could feel the heavy, oppressive atmosphere that sent a shiver down his spine. It was as if the entire street was alive, squirming in the darkness. Man, this atmosphere's seriously messed up. I need to get home fast, Guy Deco thought, bracing himself. His cyborg-modified body began forcibly accelerating his alcohol metabolism. In an instant, his mind cleared, and he picked up on a faint sound. It was the sound of footsteps. Multiple footsteps, coming from behind. What the? As he turned his head, a chill ran down his spine. Bathed in the light from the planet above, a group stood in the street. Some wore ragged clothing, others the uniforms of security personnel, while a few were dressed in worn-out pirate jackets like Guy Deco's. 15 figures stood there, each in different attire, watching him. All of them had their lips twisted into eerie grins. Who the hell are you? Guy Deco shouted at the bizarre group staring at him. He quickly pulled out his laser pistol and aimed it at them. FGUNVEL.com. What kind of madness is this? That deranged group was unmistakably the same junkies he'd seen this morning. Come to think of it, Freddy had mentioned that one of their members wearing power armor had been attacked by them. He hadn't understood how they could have been overwhelmed at the time, but facing them now, it made sense. They didn't look normal. In fact, they appeared extremely dangerous. I need to escape. These were the ones who had even injured someone in power armor. If he tried to fight, there was no telling what would happen. The only option seemed to be hiding in a building and calling for help from other members. Guy Deco fired his pistol at the one leading the group and took off running. He didn't bother checking if he'd hit. Getting away took priority. Huff, huff, huff. It was the first time he'd run at full speed since escaping the Star Union. He ducked into a nearby abandoned building. The place was a dilapidated ruin. Windows, walls, and the ceiling were all caving in. But that made it easier to hide. He crouched behind some debris and used a broken mirror to check the street. He saw the junkies pass by without noticing him. As expected, they hadn't seen where he went. Phew, damn it. Are you all right? Just as he was about to relax, a voice from inside made him jump to his feet. He pointed his gun toward the sound, and a young man stepped out of the shadows. Shimura Cartel. Please don't shoot. What's a damn hyena like you doing here? Guy Deco recognized the young pirate with green hair instantly. He belonged to the Shimura Cartel, a small-time group surviving by petty theft around the military port. The cartel had only 5 members, so even the Marcio cartel ignored them. Wait, this isn't the time for that, Guy Deco muttered, pulling out his terminal to request backup. Hey, it's me. There's a bunch of junkies crawling around the shipyard district. Get over here quick. What? You idiots. We're close to the second headquarters. Just contact them for help, you morons. Yeah, tell them I made the request. Backup requested, he stowed his terminal. The green-haired pirate approached him. You seem to be affiliated with the second headquarters. Of course I know them, I work there. Is that so? Impressive. The green-haired pirate nodded as if genuinely impressed. It'd take about 10 more minutes for Guy Deco's comrades to arrive. Keeping an eye on the street with his mirror to spot any junkies, he started talking. What are you doing here so late? Got something to scavenge? Guy Deco asked. I came for something I needed, the green-haired pirate replied. You're nuts. Then why didn't you come during the day? I had to avoid the surveillance cameras. Hearing this, Guy Deco let out a scoff. What nonsense is that? The cameras here haven't worked in ages. Is that so? You think we've got energy to waste on places like this? There are plenty of spots just like this one that don't get any power. That's true. Idiot, Guy Deco muttered. I'm curious, the green-haired pirate continued. What do you do at the second headquarters? Security. I can't tell you more than that. As they talked, Guy Deco started to feel something was off. The green-haired pirate claimed to have come looking for something in the middle of the night, in a place covered in debris. Normally, he'd bring search equipment, or at least a flashlight, but there was nothing of the sort on him. And you're just standing here instead of looking for whatever it is. No need. I've already found it. You found it. What is it? Guy Deco waited, but the green-haired pirate merely smiled, saying nothing. It could be that he didn't want to show a fellow pirate something valuable, but this felt different. Besides, Guy Deco glanced outside at the junkies roaming around. They were searching other buildings thoroughly but avoiding this ruin. It was as if something in here was keeping them away. He suddenly recalled a story he'd heard at a bar a few days ago, a rumor about a demon wearing human skin. It sounded uncomfortably similar to what he was experiencing now. Damn it. The conversation stopped. In the silence, only the sound of their breathing echoed within the ruins. Judging by the breath alone, the green-haired pirate seemed human, but Guy Deco couldn't shake his fear. What if that breath was really the sound of a demon savoring its prey? With a trembling hand, he picked up the broken mirror piece again. His heart pounded as if he were running at full speed. He wanted to turn around and check with his own eyes, but fear rooted him in place. Instead, He angled the mirror toward his shoulder, hoping to catch the reflection of the man behind him. If the pirate was really human, he should see him. But Gaidiku soon regretted his decision. What he saw over his shoulder wasn't a man but a spider-like creature, crouching low and extending its jaws toward the back of his head. Chapter 260. A mirror, huh? I picked up the blood-stained mirror shard, watching the spider-like monster's form appear on the cracked surface before it turned blurry. The mimic organ, enhanced by the form dominator, was designed to make sure I wouldn't be caught even by cameras. It emits pheromones and psychic power from micro-holes spread across my body, disrupting the sensors of advanced machinery. Thanks to that, whenever a camera captures me, it ends up looking like the light's been distorted, resulting in a foggy image. But if needed, the gremlin moss, something I could disperse in a mist-like form thanks to the great infector, could fully disable those cameras. Of course, using it too often would eventually get me caught. But that's a problem I can manage by being careful. What's more troubling is the mirror itself. I can't hide how I look when reflected. Still, how often would anyone carry a mirror around? The mimic organ induces a sense of unease in those around me. It's only natural, after all, trying to mimic something 1/10 of my actual size, given my over 20-meter body, would raise suspicions. But the cyborg I just devoured, Gaidiku, felt nothing off about my appearance. The pheromones and psychic power combined to perfectly replicate the image of the green-haired pirate he knew. Too bad I can't mimic objects. While the mimic organ's capabilities have improved, it still can't mimic inanimate objects. During my earlier visit to the slave market before coming to Kesha Arma, I got away with many things, but when pretending to be a pirate, lacking weapons always gave me away. This time, too, Gaidiku realized something was off because I didn't have a flashlight. Claiming to search for something in the dark without proper equipment would naturally arouse suspicion. In short, the two primary weaknesses of the enhanced mimic organ are the foggy appearance on cameras and the inability to replicate objects perfectly. That said, it's already far better than how it functioned in the game. Expecting it to improve further might be asking too much. Well, that was an interesting experiment. And I'm glad you turned out to be useful. I licked the blood off the mirror and the insect-like creature perched on my wing arm twitched. 6 clawed legs, a body resembling a cross between a mantis and a fly, and 2 wings on its back. Nothing out of the ordinary for an insect monster, except for one key detail. Instead of an insect's head, a human head was attached, uttering incomprehensible sounds. It bore a striking resemblance to the pirate I'd just devoured. The cyborg Gaidiku had become a parasitic chimera under my control. Initially, I'd considered letting him live as a host, but he'd gone and called for backup without my orders. No reason to keep him around then. The irony was palpable, he'd taken quick action to save his life, yet that's precisely what shortened it. It's about time his comrades arrived. I summoned my minions scattered around the area. Guests are coming. Get ready to welcome them. My loyal servants, who find happiness only in obeying my will, began hiding within the abandoned buildings to prepare for the ambush. I have 5 parasites left. Those who longed to serve me were already on their way. You have a task to complete, I said. As the voice of the once called Jason the cultist emerged from my throat, the parasitic chimera bowed. Damn junkies. What kind of mess is this at night? The higher-ups want this dealt with ASAP. 10 pirates entered the dockyard district. Uncharacteristically well-equipped for outlaws, they wore mid-grade power armor, wielding Gauss rifles or psychic rifles. Some even carried psychic shields and medical kits typically used by cult warrior squads. The reason these pirates had such high-quality gear was that the Marcio cartel had seized weapons left behind by the cult Empire army. Using credits earned from selling those weapons, Montana Marcio had bulk purchased the power armor. As a result, even common pirates now had access to mid-grade power armor, usually reserved for corporate enforcers or low-ranking officers. Where did Gaidiku say he was? Just a bit farther. Wasn't he a cyborg? He should be able to handle a bunch of junkies himself. Don't you remember what happened to Jonas? He got taken out even in power armor. TCH, that's just because he was an idiot. If it were me, I would have dodged like this when that bastard charged at. While exchanging idle chatter, the pirate at the forefront raised his hand, signaling that someone was approaching ahead. The pirates immediately raised their weapons and scanned their surroundings. Being veterans of pillage and crime, if there was one thing they excelled at, it was combat experience. In an instant, these pirates transformed into seasoned soldiers, focusing on the shadows cast by the abandoned buildings. Something was lurking there. It certainly wasn't Guy Deco. After all, that cyborg pirate was just one person, not the group now emerging from the shadows. It's them. As if the pirate's shout were a signal flare. Figures hidden in the darkness rushed toward the armored pirates. The lead pirate pulled the trigger on his Gauss rifle. The expensive and immensely destructive tungsten rounds tore through the enemy's abdomen with ruthless force. No human could survive with a fist-sized hole in their chest. Thinking he had dealt with the enemy, the pirate prepared to assist his comrades, but that was a mistake. The junkie, who had staggered from the impact of the tungsten bullet, lunged at him again, still wearing that eerie grin. What the hell? The pirate hastily swung his rifle, smashing it into the grinning madman's face. A sickening sound of flesh being crushed echoed as the assailant fell backward. The pirate fired multiple rounds into the enemy, ensuring he stayed down. The others faced a similar situation. The enemies, despite losing limbs, continued their relentless assault, leaving the pirates unnerved. What the hell did these freaks take? Aim for the head. The only saving grace was that the junkies' physical abilities weren't particularly impressive. The pirates, maintaining their composure, quickly subdued them. Anyone injured? I'm fine. Wait, hold on. Why are there only 6 of us? What? Wait, where did the others go? They were just behind us. There should have been 10 of them, but now only 6 remained. Panic set in, and they quickly checked the corpses, wondering if they had accidentally shot their own. But none of the bodies belonged to their missing comrades. What's going on? I'll try contacting them. As one pirate reached for his communicator to send a transmission, he witnessed something unbelievable. What is this? It's fog, isn't it? Before they realized it, a thick mist had enveloped the area. Only the upper parts of the abandoned buildings were visible above the gray cloud. The life support system might have malfunctioned. Damn it. Everyone, bite down on your oxygen capsules. The pirates swiftly bit into the oxygen capsules integrated into their armor. The capsules would gradually dissolve, providing them with enough air to last until they escaped the area. I don't think we can handle this on our own. I'll report to HQ. The 4 missing comrades had already faded from their minds. This was a space fortress orbiting a planet. A malfunctioning life support system was far more critical than a few junkies or missing allies. As the pirate took out his device to report to the higher-ups, something emerged from beyond the mist. What is that? He wasn't the only one who noticed it. At first, they thought it was just another structure in the abandoned factory, but it didn't take long for them to realize how wrong they were. Buildings don't move. But that thing did. The spider-like creature approached them in utter silence. Damn it. Why the hell isn't this working? Try again. Shit, why do you keep telling me to try again when it's not working? You do it. Do you have a death wish, you bastard? 4 pirates, separated from their group, had taken refuge inside a nearby abandoned building. They'd been hunting down the junkies when the sudden fog rolled in, forcing them to take cover. A malfunction in the life support system was a critical problem. They tried to report it using their devices, but for some reason, the equipment was completely unresponsive. Wouldn't it be better just to make a run for it? What? And walk out into that fog without knowing what's mixed in it? Both of you, shut up. The pirate with the longest history in the organization issued a cold warning, and everyone fell silent. I heard something. Shut your mouths. A sound. More of those junkies. All of them strained to look out through the shattered window. The fog was thick, as if some kind of gas leak had occurred. Just as the pirate said, they heard someone's voice coming from within the fog. It was Guy Deco, the one who had called them there, asking for help. That sounds like Guy Deco, doesn't it? What should we do? It wasn't a matter of camaraderie or rescuing him out of some sense of brotherhood. They needed to understand the strange phenomena occurring here, and Guy Deco, who had requested their support, would be the one who knew best. Let's grab him first, then figure out the rest. Damn it, if things were going to turn out like this, he should have given us a heads up. The pirates cursed Guy Deco under their breath as they moved cautiously. Following his voice, they reached a half-collapsed abandoned building. He was shouting from around here, but where did he go? Over here. As if to respond, the cyborg's voice rang out again. The pirates looked around, trying to locate where Guy Deco might be. Over here. Crazy bastard. Could you be more specific? The voice was coming from the broken staircase, and all four of them climbed up to the next floor. This way. This way. Look over here. There was no sign of Guy Deco, only his voice echoing around them like some eerie chorus. Intermixed with his words was the faint buzzing of large insect wings. That's when the pirates finally realized that something was seriously wrong. The owner of that voice. It wasn't Guy Deco. We need to get out of here. Now. What the hell is going on? This is messed up. Hey, why are there only 3 of us? Where's the 4th guy? What the hell are you talking Abu, huh? As shit. There were 4 of them when they climbed the stairs, but now only 3 remained. Why are you all acting weird? I'm right here. Guy Deco's voice continued to echo through the abandoned building, where no one else but them should have been. And the buzzing sound between the words grew steadily louder. Stick together. Thick fog, an unknown voice, and a missing comrade. The remaining 3 suppressed the urge to scream, raising their guns. They stood back to back, their eyes darting around incessantly. Their fingers trembled slightly on the triggers. As if aware of their wariness, the building fell into an eerie silence. Is it gone? Get a grip, idiot. It's still here. The most timid among them swallowed nervously, and in that instant, the floor beneath them gave way. They were so tense that they couldn't even muster a scream as they fell to the floor below. Everyone, be careful. The veteran pirate, barely regaining his senses, tried to warn them, but before he could finish, a long, black arm shot out from the mist and snatched him up. Hidik. You wah. The 2 remaining pirates, who witnessed this, screamed in terror, their cries nearly turning into sobs. One of them raised his Gauss rifle and began firing wildly into the fog. The timid pirate, unlike his comrades, chose to flee rather than fight. In a panic, he stumbled out of the building, scrambling on all 4s as he dashed through the streets. The sound of gunfire abruptly ceased behind him. He knew all too well what that meant. Using every ounce of strength left in his body, the frightened pirate sprinted through the darkened streets. Even when he'd faced the underboss of the Marcio cartel, he hadn't felt fear like this. After all, that man was something he could comprehend, a source of terror within the limits of his understanding. But the being lurking within this fog was different. It was an unnameable fear, an unholy, mud-like terror. Faced with such an incomprehensible presence, all he could do was run away, sobbing like a child. As he continued to flee, he suddenly realized the fog was thinning. In the distance, he saw the boundary sign that marked the entrance to the entertainment district. Just beyond it lay the luxurious pleasure facilities, places where he could find other cartel members to help him. A glimmer of hope pierced his fear-clouded mind. He took a determined step forward. If only his legs would move. Had fear paralyzed him completely. Confused, he tried to move his legs, but they wouldn't budge. At the same time, a warm sensation began to spread inside his ear. He tried to reach up and touch it, but his arm refused to obey. He wanted to scream, but his mouth wouldn't open. Completely immobilized, he could only listen as a familiar buzzing sound filled his ears. The creature that had mimicked Guy Deco's voice landed before him. Cold sweat poured from his entire body as he saw it. Just moments ago, he thought the terror of the unknown was the true embodiment of fear, but he was wrong. The universe held things far beyond what he could even begin to imagine. Like the insect standing before him, wearing his comrade Guy Deco's head. Master, this one has connections with the Life Support Systems Administrator, the creature spoke in Guy Deco's voice. Then, a rifle fell from above, landing on the ground with a dull thud that echoed like thunder in his ears. It was the Gauss rifle his fellow pirate had used to fight off the monster. And he could feel it, the sickening, warm breath on the back of his neck. Even paralyzed, his senses remained painfully sharp, allowing him to recognize the strong scent of blood mixed within that breath. You seem to have your uses. The voice that followed was that of a man, calm and almost gentle. But the timid pirate couldn't find any comfort in it. He didn't know what awaited him next. Yet he could imagine, even with his meager imagination, that what was about to happen to him would be something beyond the limits of horror, a nightmare so terrible that even the word horrific would be an understatement.